All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the U.S. Golf Croquet Open, and we're about to get started here with the warm-up for the final match between Malcolm Fletcher and his brother Robert Fletcher. Should be a very fun all-Australian final between two brothers. I'm joined here by their third brother, Greg Fletcher,
Hey Tom, great to be here.
and it's first day of the tournament. It's been a little bit overcast, so there was maybe a call for rain. So hopefully the weather stays in their favor. But both the players are bundled up as warm as they need to be, and they're heading out to do their opening warm-ups. And on the lawn next to them, which we'll be able to see both in the background of these shots, and we'll cut to it intermittently, will be the game for third place between Kyle Maloof and Matthew Essick. So an all-Australian final and a all-American third place game. And I think we should just take a few minutes to talk about how both of these players got here and just have a little look at the knockout. So this tournament started with 4 blocks of 8 and went down to the top 4 players from each block, making it out into a knockout to start a round of 16. Round of 16 started with best 2 out of 3 matches in the round of 16 and the round of 8. And then the semis onward have been best of 5s, including the Shield final, which me and Greg played in. And I believe the third place match will be a best of 5 as well. So Robert obviously came out on the top half of the bracket. Greg, would you like to walk people through what Robert had to do to get here?
Yeah, so Robert's first round match was against Shane Hitler, who is a friend of yours, I believe, from
He was a
college.
colleague of mine at St. John's, where we both learned how to play croquet.
Yeah, so it's the first time that I've met Shane, and yeah, he's a great guy, great player, got a lot of potential. As it turns out, Robert got him in 2 games in the first round. Then he played Danny Honeycutt, and that looked like a tough match. Danny's like always in with a chance, and those games went down to 7-5, 7-5. And then the last round that he played was against Kyle Maloof, which was a really hard fought battle by both players. Robert did end up coming up on top on that one, but Kyle definitely played a fantastic match.
Yeah, so Robert, obviously, just on paper, any tournament Robert is at, always the favorite to win, as he is the world #1 and a very consistent performer day in and day out. But we do have an interesting experience here where in the block, Malcolm and Robert were in the same block, and Malcolm actually took
the
game
Malcolm
off of Robert.
got up 10-8. So for those who aren't aware, in the blocks we were playing 19-point games, which enables you to have a bit more of a contest without resorting to best of 3s. So we just played last year in Virginia the World Championships, and in the blocks we played a best of 3 because we had enough time allocated for that. And it allows you to have a proper competition between players. It's kind of a little bit tough if you just play 13-point a game and it's all over and you feel like you're just warming up. So having this best of 3, best of 5 helps eliminate that. And the compromise between those two is the 19-point a game. And yeah, as Tom mentioned, Malcolm did come up against Rob in that one. I believe the score was 10-8. So close, but still the victor in that one.
And so on the other side of this final, we have Malcolm, who had a very good performance in the block, obviously, taking that game off of Robert, and also very strong going forward in the knockout. Greg, would you like to walk us through Malcolm's path to the final?
Yeah, so Malcolm's first round was against Harry Dodge, who is a croquet pro, hailing originally from England. Currently, he is in Florida at one of the clubs here just recently. And yeah, he's a top player from a few years ago in England, and he's now come back on the scene. It's really great to see him here. Malcolm got up 7-1, 7-6 against Harry. And then in the next round, Malcolm played yourself, Tom.
Yes.
In a nail-biting match where Malcolm won 7-6, you won 7-4, and the last game down to the hook at 13 as well, so nail-biter.
That dang jump shot.
So yeah,
It's going to haunt my dreams for a while.
So that was a really tough match, and then Malcolm proceeded on to the semi-finals to play against Matthew Essick, and he won this in 4. So that was also a tightly fought match where there was a 7-6 on in at least one of the games there, and he ended up closing up 7-4 in the 4th game.
Yeah, we obviously were commentating on a little bit of that match yesterday, and Malcolm looked in extremely good form. Matthew, even by his own admittance, was having a struggle with his normal play. We saw him switch from Irish hoop running to Solomon, which is very unusual. If there's any telltale sign that Matthew's uncomfortable.
Yeah, we noticed that, I think, around about hoop 7 in the first game. There seemed to be decision point to swap to Solomon, and you were mentioning that this seems as if he's going to try and get into form with the Solomon and move to that. So, yeah, Malcolm definitely capitalized on that and played some... basically, his gameplay was a lot of fancy shots and also... and he pulled them off, and also going for hoops when he had a chance. That first jump shot to start the game, where we were talking about at the time, you could easily do a few rotations at hoop 1s, see if you can get a little bit closer. Malcolm decided he would just jump over the ball and get it started. So definitely playing really well. Also, today they're going to be playing with sunshiny balls. I
think they're using yours.
Well, I do not know. I know it was offered, but I believe they might have opted for the sunshinies because they've been playing with them the whole time, so they just want to stay with something that's familiar. However, yeah, now's a good time to mention the equipment that they're playing with. We have, throughout this tournament, played with sunshiny balls. There are 3 manufacturers of croquet balls now across the world, of which one, as I've mentioned, is Sunshiny. We also have Dawson's from Australia, and also now recently added last October, they were approved, the Invictus X balls, which Malcolm and Robert have been prototyping for the past, I would say, year and a half. I myself have been playing with the Invictus balls for quite a while now. I've got my hands on a few of the prototypes, and I can say quite confidently that I've been really excited for the opportunity in the future to play with these balls. In my opinion, they've been fantastic from at least a year ago. However, Robert is, yeah, like in his play and most things, a bit of a perfectionist. He wants things to be the way, yeah, he wants things to be perfect, which I think really makes a difference to the end product that he had. So he waited a year and ended up getting what I think is an absolutely fantastic product, where it's emulating the original Dawson feel. The seam on the ball is almost invisible, and yeah, they're a true joy to play with. So I'm super excited for more tournaments to be able to play with these. And actually, Tom, I think you were participating in the very first tournament that had the Invictus balls. Is this true?
Yes. So me and Stephen Morgan went to Australia earlier last year to attend the Fletcher Sharp Invitational put on by Robert and Allison Sharp, as well as the Australian Open. And during the Fletcher Sharp Invitational, the Invictus balls were used periodically, I believe, because at that time they still were going through the process of WCF approval, but they were used in certain practice courts and everything just for us to get a feel, and they play really, really well. I mean, beautiful.
And also in the main events I was considering was the one actually that David and Kyle Maloof put on.
Yes.
The Mountain View Lake.
How could I forget? So, yes, and we were joined, by the way, by David Maloof.
Speaking of.
Hello, David.
Hello, everybody.
And David's son, Kyle, will be playing alongside this final in the third place match against Matthew Essick, as we mentioned earlier. So we'll be cutting back and forth to that match intermittently. And David here and his son did put on a wonderful invitational tournament back in November after the World Championships for us, a lot of the Americans, and some of the top Egyptian players who were able to stay over. and we did use Invictus balls, and they were, I think everyone universally had a very positive impression of them. Wouldn't you say, David?
Edition of Invictus balls that I saw right here, where I was looking for a seam to see the seams, because you can always tell at a seam how round or how true a ball is. And honestly, I took two of the balls and I could not find a seam in the Invictus ball. So I am hugely impressed by the quality and workmanship, but not surprised knowing the Fletchers and how, like Greg said, how meticulous they are in both their play and development. I just want to ask Greg a few questions, because obviously he knows both players very, very well in those styles. And
Russ, I think they're about ready to get started.
from my observation, I've always been impressed watching Robert play golf croquet, because he is the one player who, on any surface against any opponent, seems to do so exceptionally well. And his game stands up to whatever the court conditions are, whatever the hoop conditions are, and whatever the opponent's doing. And one of my observations is, when I watch Robert play, he always ends up,
Russ, are you there?
on a contested wicket. He seems to be ending up with shots 2 to 3 feet directly in front of the wicket when he's scoring the wicket. And I watch that compared with some of the other players who are making these exciting shots. Robert is one of these players that makes the game look, almost robotic and boring. He's so good. And when I watch Malcolm, and I'm interested in your viewpoint on this as a brother, Malcolm seems to be the shot maker of the two. Robert is the shot maker when he needs to, but he always seems to find ways to never have to make, many of the baseline jumpers or, the difficult shots that make the game exciting. And Malcolm is the one that is so good at hitting the long shots. As a viewer, that's my impression of the two players as I watch them play.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's a really good assessment of both of their styles, David. Just quickly interject, I misspoke earlier on about they are indeed actually using the Invictus X balls. So today they're going to feature in the final, so that's great. So that's very exciting. And so just touching on the different styles of play. I really think that you hit the nail on the head there, David, about how Robert somehow manages to find. I turn around and his ball's in front of a hoop that it didn't look as if he had a chance to be in, and it didn't seem. I'm not quite sure how he managed to get creep closer. I think there's a lot to learn from the ball positions that Robert plays. I'd say it's very tactical in a way that he thinks quite a few rotations ahead and is very considerate of the angles. It's a very, you might put it as you might have put it, a very robotic type of play. But I think that's you're trying to describe it in that it doesn't do anything flashy. You said that if he does need to pull out a flashy shot, he will, but he tends to rely on good ball positions, on angles that allow him to get a ball in, to clear, to make his opponent play a shot that they unexpectedly to themselves go off in a position that they didn't think they would go to, like to outplay his opponents. So it's very tactical.
I'm just going to interject here real quick. We have a question from the chat about the Invictus balls asking, how are they for AC with pulling and pass rolls, etc.?
Well, I think
clear
they're
from
great,
Robert.
but I do know that David has had a bit of a hit with them himself. And do you want to say your own personal thoughts, David, as a user of the balls?
Well, the one thing that I noticed, these were new balls, and the Dawsons that we have been playing with are the original Dawson 2000s, maybe 20 years old at this point in time. So, it's hard to give a true assessment of the difference, but, the Invictus ball that we were using has, probably 3 times the pull or draw on a croquet stroke of the balls that we are used to. And, part of that is the composite, part of that is the milling. But, as an experienced player, this is what we're all looking for, is a ball that makes the game a little bit more challenging for the AC players. I couldn't tell if Robert scored that. No, I guess he
did
didn't
not
score that.
So it missed just on the left side of the hoop and is probably sitting on the boundary somewhere around hoop 3. So Malcolm would be looking to get a wire here on the red ball and put Robert in a fairly tough position.
This is going to be an interesting hoop. I love to watch these contested hoops with Robert and how he plays these hoops. So both players are trying to control the short side of the court. They want to be in a position where their clearings are going to be clearings where they can clear the full length of the court and the opponents can only clear a short distance. That shot right there is a shot a lot of amateurs don't understand. When Robert hit that ball, a lot of amateurs think, I want to get the opponent to the baseline, but I want to stay close to the hoop. As an experienced player, Robert knows that he needs to use that baseline, that short side, for protection. So for him, he was trying very, very hard to get his ball out of bounds. So now red is in a position to play defense against black, where it can move the black ball, the full length of the court. So Robert's just going to lag up here with yellow and pretty much force Malcolm to either take the long, difficult hoop shot or make a pre-clear, an early clear on yellow, knowing that red's going to be hitting the black ball. So Robert chose to purposely go out of bounds there so that Malcolm can't clear yellow the length of the court and hold position. So this pretty much is going to turn into a shooting contest here. Malcolm's going to be coming in.
He looks like he's lining up shooting the hoop.
He's going to shoot the hoop, exactly.
So I think that what David mentioned there was like a pretty good assessment of how Robert would normally play a shot in with yellow. And then when David was saying, well, it looks as if it might be a bit of a shooting contest, I think that's like, both players are feeling out their swings, seeing what works. It's nice to get up, one love here. So David, do you think that's more of an aggressive option? Because with blue, would you consider blocking black, red from black? Is that like one of the options that is on the table?
That is certainly one of the options. But knowing Robert and watching Robert and watching Malcolm, I know in that situation there would have been a
great hoop.
Clear. In other words, if blue tried to block, then yellow was going to try to pre-clear that blue ball, giving red the chance either to take the hoop or...
So Robert has just scored hoop 1 from the boundary. I suspect that there may have been somewhat of a double target there with black, which may have prompted Malcolm to try to take that more aggressive hoop shot with blue if he wasn't confident that he could get a block. But either way, Robert has ran the hoop comfortably halfway down to hoop 2. And this early score in this match will be 1-0 to Robert. This is a best of 5, so, look at that. A little unlucky there. So
looked good for a minute.
But this is a best of 5 match, so even compared to the best of 3s that they have been playing on previous days, well, they did play best of 5s in the semis yesterday. This is a endurance competition. It's not a sprint. So even if Robert gets up 3-4 hoops in this game, Malcolm has no reason to worry. There's a lot of croquet left to be played, and that's something that a lot of players who are less experienced with tournaments sometimes get in their head about if they start to get down. And there's always chances to get back in until that person has scored 7.
So a lot of people are looking at that play that Malcolm made, and a lot of amateurs are going to say, "Wow, pretty poor leg, but that is exactly where Malcolm wanted that blue ball, because somebody is going to have to play defense against red. He has put blue in a position where yellow can't see it, knowing that blue can take care of that red ball. So I suspect looks like Malcolm's going to take on the hoop. The other option Malcolm might have is to put it in a position where he has a hoop shot, but where yellow cannot see it.
The other option might be, David, as you're alluding to, is he could go on the other side of red, potentially, right? So yellow couldn't see.
Right, or
black.
using the hoop, looking at yellow, it's kind of on the, so if he goes on the outside a little bit, he might have had a clear position where, he could run the hoop, blue could clear red, and yellow couldn't do a thing about it.
Then I guess the lesson for people who want to improve their golf croquet game is to consider scenarios like this and all others at hoops where you've got balls that you can use your opponent's ball to block the next ball for a clearance. So we mentioned you could use red to block yellow from black, or as David was pointing out, like potentially the hoop could come into play rather than just pop a ball in front and hope that your opponent's not going to clear it, because at this level they definitely will be clearing it and maintaining position.
So it looks like Robert has called a referee. If you can see this dark green line on the camera at home, those are some of the old hoop holes that have been from when the hoops have been shifted side to side, and he may believe that his yellow ball is currently lying in one, and he does have relief from that he can have the hole repaired.
I can't tell if blue can see red or if black is in scoring position.
So black bounced off a little bit to the side. Based on the fact that yellow can hit it, I would say it's not very runnable, but blue can see red from this perspective, as far as I can tell. So I think Robert here will be looking to get a stop shot on black just to hold two balls near position on the hoop. Blue's going to have to play its clearance on red. And Malcolm will have some work to do with the black ball to try to get control back of his hoop from Robert. I think that hole that Robert's having repaired was the reason he ended up next to the hoop instead of in front of it in the first place, because you saw that it hit the front of the wire and then sort of rolled over to the side. So I think there is a little bit of a depression there for one of those holes.
So it's pretty evident right now that Robert's just looking to pre-clear that black ball. So he's got two balls near the hoop, hopefully in scoring position, leaving yellow down the other end of the court.
So here we have,
or leaving opponent down the other end of the court.
So we've moved to the next game here. We've got some familiar faces, Matthew Essick and Kyle Maloof. David, do you want to tell us a little bit about I noticed that Kyle's using one hand to warm up here. Is this something that he's come up with his own, or do you have any? He seems to have a very set particular practice. We were talking earlier on yesterday, Tom and I, how we do our 5-minute warm up. Given that Kyle's like a really great shot, I played against him in the second round, where he's really deadly at all distances. Does he have a set particular routine, or it's quite interesting to see someone start off with just one hand with practice?
Well, the feeling of using the one hand is that he wants to make sure that the swing naturally stays straight rather than forced straight. So when you see a lot of players learning the game, you see them with standard grips, split hand, and you see them using their hands a lot to try to control the mallet. With one hand, you obviously can't do that. With one hand, you have to let the mallet swing and use the length of the swing to gain the power. So what he's trying to do is just try to feel the length of the swing, try to feel letting the mallet do the work, and trying to have the mallet naturally stay on the line rather than force the mallet to stay on the line. So it's just a way that he warms up. Then he'll go from that to two hands and try to duplicate that feel, and then gradually increase the power to the point where he has a swing that feels like it wants to stay on line rather than trying to make the mallet stay on line.
Yeah, so that last point that you made about, I think is critical, right? Like he's trying to get to the point where he's not forcing the mallet. He's helping to generate like a swing where the mallet is, it's like a pendulum. That's the word I like to use. Where it feels natural, nothing forced.
Great shot from
and
Robert.
This is just I think a very novel and clever way to get to that point.
So we've gone back over to our final match, and for those of you who saw, Robert did end up clearing the black ball at hoop 2 and got lucky enough to bounce off of his red ball and lay in at least a partial block on red, which Malcolm was unable to clear. So Robert was able to quickly put away the second hoop as well, and he now has a pretty comfortable position here at hoop 3 with yellow and black on the baseline and blue and red lagging in to position on the hoop. And one of Robert's, I mean, obviously there are no weaknesses, but one of his, most damaging strengths I've found is, regardless of the lawn conditions, regardless of, the day, he always has incredible touch. You can bet on Robert being, if you get within 4 feet of a hoop, he gets within 2 feet. And it just always kind of puts him in those positions, as you were talking about earlier, David, where he's getting these straight on 3-foot hoop positions, and he's forcing you to take these big shots to get him off hoops, and he's not having to do that the other way around.
Yeah, well, what really impresses me a lot, this is one where he's taken on the hoop. Blue has probably a makeable hoop shot, but taking on blue doesn't solve the problem. So if he took on blue right there and he didn't hang around, then blue's coming back before him, and it's a lot of difficult shots that he's going to have to make to turn this hoop around. Whereas taking that one shot, ends the hoop right there with one good shot rather than multiple. So now he's in a really strong position because he's got yellow in a position to clear blue. Red comes back into position and hopefully hidden from black, and then blue's going to have to hit red from the far sideline. So wherever Malcolm hits yellow, it's not going to make any difference for Robert as far as him being able to clear that blue ball. So I think Malcolm right away is going to be shooting at red.
And that is probably worth mentioning that a lot of players who are just starting to get more confident in these distance clearances, they may still be tempted strategically to shoot yellow because they haven't really had the experience yet of what they should do. For a player of Robert's caliber, if Malcolm hits yellow into the corner, you still expect Robert to hit blue an overwhelming percentage of the time. So it doesn't actually help you. So in those situations when you're facing a strong opponent, if anyone's looking to improve their golf croquet game, take out the ball. If there's only one of their balls set in front of the hoop, take out that ball. That's the threat.
Yeah, we call it a pre-clear, but there are times where that's necessary to create what we call 2-on-1 wickets, where you have 2 balls around the wicket, your opponent has 1, and it usually takes multiple good shots to flip that wicket around in your favor. And Robert is extremely good at pre-clearing and hanging around by the wicket. Even 7-yard shots, he's going to hang around so that he's always a threat with that clearing ball.
Big shot here from Malcolm. Needs to hit the red ball. And that's a great shot. So even though Robert is still expected to hit this, his yellow ball is not currently in runnable hoop position, at least from this viewpoint. It doesn't look to be. So he'll be looking to hit this in the middle, not as hard as he can, just to get black away and to hang around.
Yeah, this is where the only restriction is getting black past the yellow ball. He's hung around. He's done everything he needed to do. So He's got 2 balls near the wicket. He's got one that can play defense, one that can play offense. So Malcolm's got a difficult decision on where he goes at this point in time.
You know, when Malcolm's head is down with that red hat on, he almost looks like one of our familiar Americans in the final, doesn't he? For those of you who are aware of Matthew's ritual of bringing out the red ball cap when he's in a final.
So this is an example of a good pre-clear. I think at this point in time, Robert's trying to bring Black out of play into the corner, but he's hoping that he comes out of bounds behind the wicket so that that ball, okay, well, he's put it in a position that...
So I think his reasoning there might be that if Blue does attempt to take on that clearance with yellow, there's a good chance that he doesn't remain in hoop running position and may even, if he doesn't hit the middle of the ball, end up mid-lawn. So I think he's planning on clearing Blue here with red and just trying to keep bullying Malcolm into these longer clears.
I think
Going to have to now.
Yeah.
this is earlier on. David was mentioning that somehow Robert ends up, getting balls in front of the hoop, and I think this is an example of is putting a feeler out there to see, can Malcolm clear it whilst sticking around. He's willing to put players in positions where they can play shots where, they'll get it most of the time. Malcolm's really great shot, as is shown all the way through this tournament. But Robert likes to test out players, see how they do, and then if it doesn't work out, as it didn't work out there, he's got an opportunity to come in. So I guess it's the point of how do you know, I guess, when to make those decisions where you put out a ball where normally you would just clear both balls off the boundary. And then that situation, it seems to have worked out for Robert.
Yeah, this is a really good situation where Robert has flipped it. That one shot where Black cleared yellow and win a great distance, that's going to cost Malcolm big time. So Robert's just going to play into good position here. He'll play into better position with red, and Malcolm's forced to clear that yellow ball, but wherever he clears it, if he doesn't get out of bounds, yellow's going to be able to protect the red ball from blue with clearing here. So he's made a really good shot. He doesn't get out of bounds. Robert's going to come in front of the wicket, and Blue's going to have to make a long shot again from the far sideline.
So unfortunately, the tropical weather here has turned, and for the first time this week, the players are going to be playing under the rain. I can see out the window here a little bit better than we can see it on the camera. It looks like it's coming down at a pretty fair clip, but the good thing about Florida is it doesn't often rain for very long.
Yeah, so I don't know how accurate it is, but the app I'm using tells me we've only got 3 minutes left of this. So let's see how that turns out.
So my mom used to live in Florida back in the day, and she said every day when she would get out of work at the same hour, it would be raining, and it would rain for 15 minutes, and by the time she got home, it was dry every single day, like clockwork.
So this brings us back to that situation. Here's Robert sitting 2 to 3 feet in front of the wicket. Yellow with a chance to move that blue ball. Oh, he's not going to take the blue ball on. He must respect Malcolm's shooting today. It looks like he's going to just play it in front. I'm very surprised with this.
He might be looking to get a block.
Also very surprised by the option.
Yeah. It's a very good set.
But again, this is what Robert does to a lot of people. He makes them hit more and more and more shots, and no matter how many shots they hit, Robert always seems to be back at that 2 to 3 foot right in front of the wicket stage, and the opponents seem to be flailing away at long-angled hoop shots from the baseline.
So Malcolm has hit that, and he only caught right half of that ball, so Robert has only been pushed to the side boundary, and Malcolm has gone well past the halfway marker. So Robert here will be looking to lay in a block on the hoop. Blocking yellow is obviously a good thing, but you don't want to give up the 7-yard hoop shot.
Yeah, he is definitely trying to block the hoop here. And again, he's forced Malcolm into probably having to take on the hoop just because blue is so far away from red. It's going to take a lot of really good shots to turn it around. So again, this is typical Robert Fletcher wicket right here, where Malcolm's having to make great shots, which he has up to this point, and see if he can pull off another miracle. But this I think is hoop all the way.
Yeah. And with blue in the position it's in, making this could potentially turn hoop 4 around as well. So a lot of benefit here. Just a little bit too much on that right wire. Hit it very solidly, but unfortunately could not run the hoop.
But again, a typical Robert Fletcher wicket where he hasn't done anything spectacular. He's made 1 or 2 7-yard clearings, and he's left with a 2-foot straight-on hoop shot that he runs with control down to pretty good position at hoop 4. And that's what makes Robert special. Is his ability to flip wickets around and control both balls, his ball and the ball he's clearing.
So that's an extremely good set by blue. Manages to get a block on yellow on the hoop just in case any bad luck might occur if Robert were to have a double target. Robert forced to play a little pop jump shot to get over black, and oh my goodness, look at this.
Oh wow. So that was a great shot.
Yeah, well, that was a ridiculous.
I mean, as I said yesterday, and as Matthew often says, when stuff like that happens, I'd rather be lucky than good. But
So-
he also says the better he gets, the luckier he gets. So.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the conditions, not necessarily the rain, but the water on the lawn. Do either of you notice or take into account a different ball reaction when the grass is a little slicker, whether it be in this case from the rain or in the morning? Typically on a lot of venues, you'll have a lot of dew in the morning on the lawn. You'll see a mark, a line where your ball went. Do either of you think that's going to make any difference? I'll just throw it out there. I think that you get less topspin initially on the first, because if you hit the ball, it'll slide along the ground. So I find that it's a little bit harder to get topspin. And I've noticed with some of these shots here that the shot that Malcolm made at the hoop, where it was basically no topspin at all because there's no friction for the ball.
Well, I probably don't put as much topspin as you younger guys anyway, so I don't notice much of a difference in GC. I certainly notice a difference in AC on croquet shots, especially when the court gets a little bit softer. My jump shot is limited range anyway, but I certainly like the dry court conditions for the jump shot. But for GC, I don't notice a lot of difference for me. But again, there's Robert, playing.
Without even touching the uprights, scores hoop 4 from down deep with blue in a hampered position to get a set at 5. So Malcolm is forced to play deep, but not off the lawn. So Robert will be laying in the red ball here and may have an opportunity to push blue close to corner 1 on the next shot.
But again, it's really interesting watching Robert play and seeing how he can flip wickets that seem impossible to flip, but he seems to be able to flip them in his favor, and does it pretty consistently. So the score is 4-0 for Robert. So Robert's going to have an interesting choice here. He can try to clear.
That's a fantastic
Yeah,
shot
that is
from
great.
Malcolm. So black is now blocking red from very close, so I don't even believe that a jump shot is available to score the hoop. So this kind of makes things interesting.
Yeah, it makes it a little more difficult for blue's clearing of red, too. So I think Robert's just going to lag in here.
Yeah. All right, all three balls are up by the hooper now in very close proximity to one another. So in doing this clearance, there's a lot of added danger of if you hit something just a little bit off of where you intend, you may scatter either your partner or everything. That's a fantastic shot.
That is another ridiculous Fletcher shot.
Yeah.
That's
Manages to surgically extract the red ball from that little pile, find the gap between black and yellow, and push it a few yards south of corner 3. So Robert will now be staring down the barrel of a very long return clearance to try and save hoop 5. There is a little bit of character on these lawns, especially as you go down lengthways. There's some ridges that can move the ball, and depending on how strong the wind is at any given moment, which I can't quite tell in these rainy conditions if things are blowing very hard, the flags over there are moving at a decent amount. So it can definitely affect the path of the ball on shots of this length. Just misses that on the right-hand side. Didn't look like he missed by more than an inch or two. So a good swing, but Malcolm will get an attempt at scoring his first hoop of the game. Runs it smoothly, not quite as far as he might have wanted. Still a little south of the peg, and giving an opportunity for Robert to maybe get an effective wire. And Greg, yesterday we mentioned in Malcolm and Matthew's match the sort of, not pointlessness necessarily, but just sort of in golf croquet, the peg doesn't really come into very much play except on hoop 5 and 6, and it mostly just serves as an obstacle.
That's right. I think it's a good obstacle, but one that is sort of historical legacy from AC. It's not one that I think that you would. It's not. It serves no point other than an obstacle. But I think it's a great one to make because the distance between 5 and 6 is less between, let's say, 1 and 2. You've got now, as it turns out, the ability to do a block. It didn't work out this time by the looks of it for Robert, but adds a little bit more ability to hide from your opponent, because if you do make hoop 5, you've got the best opportunity to get up to the next hoop. And yeah, I just don't think that if golf croquet had started off, on its own, that anyone would have thought about putting a peg there. So it's kind of a nice little accident, I reckon.
and for some of us old people, it keeps us in line with order of play. So
Yes.
I'm going to leave you guys for a minute. I'm going to go down and watch Kyle and Matthew for a few moments, but I will be back at some point in time.
Thank you for joining us,
It's been a pleasure, David.
Stay dry.
Yeah.
So, depending on if Robert got this wire or not, and I can't quite tell what Malcolm is lining up at.
I'm guessing this is just a clearance on yellow.
That's
Yep.
a great shot, center ball. And there's a potential with where he hit it out that there may be some sort of a wire, depending on blue's position.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If you end up not quite getting level, let's say when you make hoop 5 and you head up to hoop 6, you've got the ability to clear, as Malcolm did, north of hoop 6, and now the hoop is going to come into play where you've got a potential block. These are things you've got to consider when you're playing in this case, the blue ball or the red ball. Both Malcolm and Robert are considering that. They're thinking about where can I clear the next ball to. And in this case, I'm going to guess that the way that Robert shot at that, he had a shot on it, maybe not full ball, but definitely the hoop can play a big
Yeah,
role.
it looked like he missed that one a little wide, so I'm wondering if typically if you can only see a piece of a ball sticking out from behind a hoop, the subconscious tendency is to miss wide of it because you're scared of, clanging off the hoop or something else bad happening. So most people have a tendency to pull those away from the obstruction.
Do you want to talk about maybe the thought process that you go through in order to... So Malcolm didn't get that one, giving Robert an opportunity with red. Tom, if let's say you have a half ball or a quarter ball, or maybe 1/5 of a ball, as the shot that Robert had before, at what point do you consider you would just lay up and let them have a shot? Would you go for a block? What's your thought process on that? Given that this can be quite dynamic, so we can't really hold it to you that you would do it every time, but do you want to give us maybe a tournament, top croquet tournament player's perspective on that?
I definitely fall on the more aggressive side. I'm the type of player who says never say die. So if I can see a piece of that ball, most of the opponents I play these days, I assume that if that ball's in any decent position, that they probably will run the hoop unless the hoops are extremely difficult and they've already shown me that they're having troubles with them. But if I have no reason to believe that they would miss and they've given me a sliver, I might as well take my sliver. I'm not the type to go halfway very often, sometimes to my detriment. But I would rather put it on my mallet knowing that I'm a good enough shot most of the time to, if I do catch that sliver, there's a chance that I can go from absolutely losing this hoop to maybe, potentially, having a chance at it.
Yeah, if you got such a great shot as yourself, Tom, I think it's worth taking advantage of that. Every shot you have on the lawn is an opportunity to get yourself back in or to make a hoop. So yeah, I think I have a similar point of view to you. If I have anything available, I'm just going to take a shot at it. I think we're both pretty comfortable if our opponent does make the hoop and we clang off, to the side, or if we're on, as it was in the case for Robert, on the south boundary, we're pretty confident to make our way up to the next hoop anyway with our touch shot.
It did backfire on me when I put your brother through hoop 12, though, from south of hoop 12 somehow. So, for the folks watching at home, do not just take what I'm saying as gospel. Sometimes it's better not to shoot. But sometimes that little goblin in your head that says, hit the ball, and it's just like, should not be listened to. We've been asked, has the rain stopped? I'm looking out the window. It's still, it might just be misting lightly. It's very hard to tell from in here. But if it is coming down, it's very light at the moment. Okay, so Malcolm here had a slightly hampered backswing from blue and has elected just to gently roll into the jaws. I can't tell exactly from here what angle red has. It may have a decent, viable jump shot, but I'm not sure.
The way that Robert is looking at that, he's definitely going to be taking it on, so this is going to be a clearance on blue as far as he can get it down. I'd say that at this distance, an angle, so the closeness of it should make it relatively easy as far as jump shots go, but as Tom mentioned, it might be a worse angle than we realize. Another factor is that these lawns have just had some rain on them, so that will make a difference. And then another factor is how hard the courts are in themselves, typically. And due to the nature of these sand-based lawns, you will, when you play a jump shot, leave a depression in the ground, meaning that you're not going to get as much height as you would at, say, a venue such as Virginia, Chesapeake Bay.
So there's always the risk here when you have, depending on his perspective of red, if you hit this shot and you mishit it slightly, or if it curves, you may end up hitting your partner out of the back of the hoop. Because it looks from his perspective that red and black are fairly close to one another in the line that he'll be playing on. And obviously it's not something that should necessarily keep you from taking the shot, but you have to be extra careful not to pull it to the right, or if you know that there's some curve, you have to account for it.
I would be considering, okay, let's say that black can run the hoop, but it's not a great shot. It's not guaranteed to get much further down than the peg. I'd be okay with, if I hit it out, like, okay, well, that's, I gave myself the best opportunity to hit red. Yeah. At least now black has a clear shot down to the hoop, but yeah, it's something you might consider. Like in this situation, Malcolm has just foregone the clearance on red, whether he was blocked or not. But as Tom mentioned, he also could have been concerned about clearing black out, because as it happens, if Robert does get it, black does have a clear shot down to hoop 8.
So Robert is, this does look fairly angled. Not quite 45 degrees, but. And he has hit the left wire. He had a perfect height, but he's popped black out just by a few inches. But Malcolm should still be able to run this all the way down to hoop 8 with a fair amount of control. But for something that I think might help the folks at home who are looking to improve their golf croquet game, the worst position to let your opponent run a hoop from is in the jaws if it's an odd-numbered hoop, because they have ultimate control. All they have to worry about if it's in the middle of the hoop is distance control. Even a shot like that from a few inches out of the hoop, it deflects, it goes off to the right. He overhit it a little bit. So just the necessity of getting it in between the uprights of the hoop from a few inches away takes away just that much more control. So a lot of people that I teach, that I encounter, say, oh, they're in the jaws. I could only probably get them out a few feet. They're still going to run the hoop. Make them run the hoop from a few feet. Don't let them just have a free shot from the jaws. So take away their control at the next hoop as much as possible. Did you agree, Greg?
Yeah, as Tom mentioned, that any opportunity you have to get your opponent out of the jaws, assuming it's a hoop running shot, yeah, it's something to take, because they're at this level. Malcolm would be pretty much guaranteed to be right in front of hoop 8, and you want to minimize that as much as possible. As it turns out, in this situation, Malcolm's gone a little bit too far past, and even if he had the right pace, he wouldn't have the right angle anyway, because, as Tom mentioned, you might just get a little bit of wire and flick off as he did. Robert's gone west to the right of black. The idea in that situation is that he's trying to give himself the opportunity to clear one of Malcolm's balls in front, in this case blue. However, I'm guessing that Malcolm's probably going to consider a blocking shot here. So, Tom, given that you're a great shot, would you be considering the odds of Malcolm doing a block on blue and just take a shot as Robert has? Okay.
Oh,
yep.
well, I wouldn't be considering it now. But yes, if Red had not just done that, if Red had missed, I would be rolling black closer to blue, but with an eye to getting on that block line, because it looks pretty close. And Robert obviously saw that was a potential. He probably was given a double target on that between blue and the hoop, which made him feel more confident in taking that. But you assume that Malcolm will get that block and that Robert will be forced to do a jump clearance or a combination clearance from a long way.
How do you feel about jump clearances? I was really happy to do them in Virginia. I'm was very comfortable doing that. At this tournament, I've not even really been looking at them as much. What are your thoughts on jump clearances?
It really depends on how I feel my jump shot has been accuracy-wise. I've had a lot of tournaments where I was very comfortable with them, even from 6 or 7 yards, if the courts were firm enough and if I felt that my jump shot was true, was straight enough. This tournament, recently, my jump shots have just been pulling a little bit to the right for reasons still unbeknownst to me that I'm working out. So I have been leaning towards combination clearances, even though I think on paper they are the harder of the two options, because you just have more variables there.
Yeah, that's for sure. The more variables at play, given that I myself, such as you, Tom, feel that in some tournaments it's just jump clearances almost nullify the double clearance at certain distances, right? Like if you can comfortably clear from 6-7 yards with a jump clearance, I think your odds are much higher than trying to hope that, even if you nail that like clearance shot, that it's going to middle. In this tournament, I'm finding that it could just be me. It's a little bit harder to get that height, so I've not really been considering it.
So we have quite a few people. We have 122 people watching with us right now. We just want to thank all of you guys for joining us. For those of you here in the United States, quite early, if you're not in the Eastern time zone especially. And for those of you watching from around the world in the various times of day that you are. So thank you.
Oh, wow. He just
Wow, what an incredible angled hoop.
That brings it to
Someone has remarked there are water droplets hanging from the top of the hoop. Yes, so The hoops right now are going to be very slick, which may have actually assisted in that shot from
That's a
Malcolm.
good
So
point.
sometimes when the balls and the hoops have a lot of moisture on them, typically a shot that may have, from an angle, stopped up might just slip its way through because there's less friction going on. I work in a very rainy club up in Linville, North Carolina. It's actually a rainforest that the club is in. So we
wow.
experience a lot of wet conditions, and you can notice a difference even on the quadway hoops and with the old Dawson balls that we have, that as soon as the conditions are wet, all of a sudden hoops get just a little bit easier to run, even when you catch a little extra wire. We're asked if there's any update from the bowl. I am not aware at the moment. I'd have to call someone from downstairs, but we may be able to get that update for you presently.
We'll keep you posted on that.
So it looks like Malcolm here is going for a promotion because of how hampered black is. So promotions, when you're going down to the next hoop, it's a little different because Robert does not look like he got into a runnable position.
Promoted black.
I'd
But-
say that this is something that Malcolm favors a lot more than other players. I see him.
Yeah.
He really loves the promotion shot. This probably would have been, an attempt to get it close enough to take a part shot at the hoop.
Yeah, so typically for those at home, if yellow had been in runnable position, Malcolm would be playing the promotion specifically to try to shoot the hoop. Because, as David mentioned earlier, in a 2-on-1 scenario, if you are blue and you promote black down to the hoop and yellow's in position and then red also lags into position, you've still left one of your balls far behind. It doesn't do you any good to clear yellow. So you'll see great players, when they have even a simple clearance, will take on the much more difficult hoop shot when they do the promotion. It's also one of the reasons that promotions are quite rare, even in those circumstances. Like you said, Malcolm probably plays them more than others do. But the trade-off of getting that ball to be unhampered is you have to take whatever hoop shot you give yourself. And if you don't give yourself a hoop shot, you're still looking down the barrel of a very long clearance to save the hoop.
Yeah, for sure. It's very much an aggressive option. It almost ended up going pretty bad for Malcolm there, but he was saved by a little bit of luck where his black ball flicked off the wire of the hoop 6.
So I've been asked if my club suffered from some of the hurricane damage, and yes, it did. Thankfully, nobody that I'm aware of was significantly injured, but Hurricane Helene did tear a path through western North Carolina a few months ago in late 2024. And there's been just a wonderful outpouring of support from all of the communities and from people from even multiple states away, emergency responders offering their assistance. So I just want to give a shout out to all of them for all the effort that they've done in helping the people of North Carolina recover from that horrible accident. And someone here has just handed me the current update of the bowl final. Game 1 went to Harry Dodge 7-4, and currently they are tied 2-2 in Game 2. So Harry Dodge has a 1-game advantage. So Robert here opting for a clearance. I don't know if he's thinking about maybe trying to cut this to a wired position, which would be sort of where our camera perspective is. And then that also would flick him over in front of hoop 11. Okay, so he's gone for the opposite. He's just going to try and send it as far away as possible to the corner. And he didn't really need the wire there or to promote himself, because if Robert scores this hoop, the game is over. So
It's one of those options that you definitely think about, given that you're very strategy and technically minded to see the options. I think it's something that, it's something you look at, right? Like, okay, if I can just cut this ball to here, and if it ends up where yellow is, actually, if we reverse the position of the balls, blue and yellow, then you're pretty much guaranteed to make the next hoop.
right. And if Malcolm were playing that shot, if the roles reversed and Malcolm being 3-6 down were playing that, I think he would be going for the wire there and hitting it a little softer to try to get in front of 11 because at this point you have to be thinking of how do I take over multiple hoops in a row. I cannot afford another hoop.
The other thing would be, as Tom mentioned at the start of that, was that also you could get your ball promoted to the next hoop as well. So in this case, Robert doesn't need that, but Malcolm, given that he needs to keep on making hoops, he would be trying to get his ball promoted to the next hoop. And then I guess it would be a matter of considering how hard should I hit this so I guarantee I get the wire, and how close do I want to get to hoop 11.
Yeah, so the benefit of those wired shots on these short boundary hoops is that they don't have to be off the lawn. They just need to be in the right line. And then from there, the pace of the shot can be solely left up to, okay, like what's going to get me? What angle am I playing? So game one is in the books, and Robert has taken it 7-3. And we'd just like to take this quick moment before we get into this next game. As you saw there was that banner about our sponsor for the tournament, Bill Simmons, with Automatic Water Solutions. So he's also the tournament manager. So big thank you to Bill for all the work that he's done in helping make this tournament happen, the first of its kind. And also want to give a quick shout out to Chris Barley and all of his support for this event and for the streaming that the USCA is able to do through this channel so that we can bring croquet to a wider audience, not only across the United States, but across the world. So thank you to them both for everything that they do to continue to grow this sport for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much to Bill and Chris. Without their support, we couldn't put on this wonderful event. I have had a great time and really hope to be at the next one. It's been a fantastic event all around, very hospitable from our hosts, for the club putting it on. Management's been great, like just everyone's been super excited, the vibe's amazing, and I've had an absolute pleasure playing on the lawns here. Also had a great match yesterday against yourself, Tom. That was a lot of fun.
We did have a lot of fun. So thankfully the weather was a little better than it is today. As you can see by the flags, it looks like the wind has picked up quite significantly. That does make a difference for players like myself who have a large cast, so players who are casters. Such as Kyle is as well, and you'll see there that he's just now beginning his cast to attempt to play this shot. But if you'll notice something else about Kyle is that he's playing with a Oakley mallet that has several holes drilled in the side of it.
I was about to bring that up, like
Yes.
the perforated mallet with holes. Given that we have got a bit of wind here, have you ever played with a mallet without any with holes in it in wind and seen any difference? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I have tested one. I've never owned one. I've never used one for any good length of time. But just in the few swings that I have taken with them, it does make a difference. And Kyle has given me testimony that he can hardly even feel the wind now on his mallet, just because of how much more reduced the surface area is when the wind's coming across it. So I noticed that the Invictus mallets also, as well as PFCs and several others, have now moved to this idea, because it is surprising, even for how small a mallet head is, how much the wind can affect it. I remember the first time I played in Australia was the McRobertson Shield 2022, and the wind was so strong that we would try to be shooting 1-foot hoop shots, and we'd have to wait between gusts, because even doing that small swing, it could move the mallet several inches to the side.
Yeah, the wind can be hectic at Canley in Victoria. So that was in 2022 for the McRobertson Shield, which you were debuting in, I believe. That was your first time competing.
Poorly, I should say.
Well,
I still haven't watched any of that video footage. I have too much self-love.
I don't know. I did hear that the response from the Australian team was that there was this guy just like hitting everything. So I think that it kind of affected you too much.
Yeah, hitting was thankfully the one thing I could do. If it had been golf croquet, I would have been fine. It was the running breaks that didn't seem to work. I was stuffing a lot of 1-foot hoops. And it should be said that the only conditions I've seen as difficult as those conditions in Melbourne were the World Championships in Virginia. And obviously golf croquet instead of AC. But just to give you an idea of some of these venues that you don't often see if you belong to some of these country clubs here in the United States that have professional maintenance teams, like for golf courses like my club. the conditions can become really difficult when the lawns are a little bit bumpier, drier. We talked about this a little bit the other day, what makes for the best croquet. And as difficult as it is, it does make the game a lot more interesting, a lot more challenging. Even the top players in the world were struggling in association to finish their turns all the time. And that just gives a lot of more interaction in the game and leads to a lot more interesting situations. So Kyle here with a medium pace 7-yard clearance. I thought that he looked like he stood up out of that one a little quickly.
It was pretty quick, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, which is very unusual for Kyle. Normally he's very methodical, stays down in his shot. Almost looks like he's moving in slow motion even when he's hitting the ball hard. So maybe just a slight bit of nerves. Maybe it's the weather. It's a little bit colder and windier out. But
Well, getting that rhythm is really important. I'd say that potentially some players have leaned a little bit more into that than others. I know that you mentioned in our match that you were saying that you were thinking about the difference between playing fast and quick.
yes. Yes. In our second game, I realized when I started missing a lot that though I normally play fast, I try not to play quick, meaning even though I have a fairly short pre-shot routine and I walk up to the ball and stalk it fairly quickly, I'm still giving myself enough time to really get in tune with the swing, how it feels, making sure that, okay, if I need an extra cast, I'm taking it, that I've looked at my line, double checked it. And it can all happen in a few split seconds, but there's a difference between actually allowing that process to be completed and just walking up there and bashing the ball, even if it from the outside doesn't look like I'm taking any more or less time one way or the other.
It's a tricky thing to do to balance the ability to feel right before a shot and taking too long. In my opinion, now I definitely think that I favor playing faster than slow because it can be very easy for players to feel comfortable playing slow, thinking that it helps, but they get slower and slower. And I just think that playing faster gives you more opportunity. Like, you're probably better off playing yourself in, but playing at shorter shots, right? Like, do a few rotations on hoop, getting that swing back, rather than slowing down your game. But as you mentioned, you don't want to play too quick. It's definitely the fine line between fast and quick. And yeah, it's something that I don't think would affect all players. Some have very methodical routines, which I think Robert's got one of those there where he can play quite fast, but also when he needs to, he does slow it down. But it's not something I would necessarily recommend to players to play slow. It's more about, it's not that he's playing, trying to aim to play slow or anything like that. He's just trying to get into that frame of mind that Tom mentioned, where you feel great for your shot. You take that one extra swing, so you feel perfect on your initial contact.
Great angled hoop from Matthew there. Red had lagged behind the hoop. I am imagining it was wired on the black ball if he did that, and he was anticipating perhaps that the best black could do would be to get in the jaws, or there was a chance that if, in attempting to run the hoop, he might jaws. Typically, you'll never see top players willingly play behind a hoop. For one very good reason is wires, right? So the one position you cannot score a hoop from or potentially see a ball that can score the hoop is from behind it. So at the very best case scenario, you're just out of position. At the very worst case scenario, you have no way to defend the hoop.
Yeah, to the point that with hoop 13, I would say that given that it's not always guaranteed that your ball will go straight, sometimes people might aim a little wide of the hoop, because the last thing you want to do is, as you lag up to hoop 13, land on the leg or just flick off on the wire.
That red ball's coming in a little fast, and unfortunately he has given that slightly too much. So Matthew here with an opportunity to get a good clearance on yellow over to the corner area and leave himself about maybe a 3-yard hoop shot.
Great shot.
Really good shot. Has pushed it almost perfectly into the corner. Black has deflected over to the north boundary somewhere behind hoop 11. And Kyle here with a probably close to a 10-yard attempt to save this hoop. Really
Great
good shot from Kyle. And you'll notice that medium pace is sort of Kyle's bread and butter. He's very good at even those 7 to 10 yarders, hitting those with a much gentler pace and hitting center ball, making sure that even if his ball did bounce off like it did, hitting 3/4, he's only peg level and not down on the south boundary.
So this shot here, Matthew's not too happy with because he probably was trying to get a block on red. Kyle definitely has the option to clear blue and maintain position, which looks like he's going for.
Yeah, so this is one that you really want to hit in the middle. And Kyle will be okay with that one. He hit about 3/4 ball, but he did not stay in good hoop running position. So this will give Matthew opportunity to set in tight. And any clearance Kyle does will only be towards the back of the court and leave Matthew a clearance down the lawn. So
The other thing I was thinking he could have done was to just gently tap blue so it was closer to yellow, so he could do a double combination so that later on yellow could clear blue.
that is very interesting. So very difficult to do over open terrain, but if you can get it. Kyle did play a shot yesterday we saw where he promoted his partner. He
True, at
promoted
hoop
his
9.
one opponent ball into the other to prevent him from running the hoop from 7 yards. So clearly it's a shot that he's capable of. So it looks like Matthew's a little bit short on most of these shots. The added moisture that's come down may just have affected his understanding of the speed a bit. As courts do get damp, they get a little mushier, and with mushiness comes more friction. And a rare miss from Kyle there at medium distance. He looked like he tried to put just a little more power on that. You can see him there sort of mimicking what he thinks he did, sort of twisting that mallet as he came through, something I do quite more often than I care to admit. So Matthew with a 1.5 yard hoop attempt. Slight angle with yellow in position.
Okay, so this is jump shot opportunity.
Yeah, he has gotten lucky that he didn't bounce off any harder, and that is one of the benefits of Matthew's Irish swing on those hoops. He does not hit them very hard. He hits them with a lot of spin, hits them very smoothly. So when they do get rejected, they typically do not go a great distance. So I don't know if there was any jump shots attempted earlier in this game, but this may very well be his first jump attempt. It's probably about 2 yards, maybe a little less. And unfortunately, he's hit the hoop, bounced back into black, and deflected off to the side, leaving black in position. So not the best result, leaving blue this open hoop shot. And Matthew, it should be said, I might have been tempted, depending on how angled that shot was with yellow in position, to turn around and stop shot the yellow ball, depending on how I felt about my hoop shot at the time. Great shot from Matthew. My hoop shooting this week has not been the best. It's not up to the level that I wanted it to be. So there were times where if it was a tight game or if I was down and I didn't want it and I was thinking about that yellow ball, I just turn around, stop shot it, have both balls in position, force you to start clearing. Matthew, on the other hand, is all gas, no brakes with hoop shooting. If you give him a hoop shot, he will take a hoop shot. He has openly discussed that his strategy is take as many hoop attempts given you as possible. If the first one doesn't work, save it with the second one. You know?
Yeah, so that's a really good example of having a dynamic ability to adjust to playing your best shot, right? So if you understand your game fully, your skills, you can then make decisions such as Tom mentioned there, where you might feel comfortable normally taking on that shot, but you're not quite ready to do it, so you're willing to take that clearance. Being able to pick those moments, I think is really critical. Understanding your game and being okay when it doesn't work out. I think that's the critical thing. It's like, if it didn't work out, given the nature of your opponents at this level are really good, Kyle has a good chance of clearing Matthew on the return shot. Not to beat yourself up, if it didn't work out your own way. Do you have any you know, you play pretty fast, so I guess you move on to the next shot. Is that your key, Tom, or do you have? How did you work up to that point? I guess like it's a matter of playing a lot of games.
The mental game has definitely been sort of the biggest hurdle for me in terms of letting the last shot go and just being okay with all the decisions I've made. I still definitely, and you probably experienced it in our match, there's quite a bit of self-verbal abuse that can happen when I don't like a decision that I made or when a shot that I felt that I should have made, you know, a couple-yard hoop shot doesn't go. So I'm my own worst critic, and it was actually Matthew who a couple of years ago over dinner, I was whinging about some bad performance I had given that day, as I often do, and Matthew said, if you could ever learn to let the last bad shot go, it's like you would be one of the best players there is, but you have to learn that first. He's like, because you carry it with you too long and you let it make other bad shots. So I'm getting more to the point now where even if I do make some sort of exclamation, I managed to leave that behind on the next shot. You made your decision. It worked or it didn't work. It was right or it was wrong. Live with it. Move on. Make a better decision.
So it's a skill, and I can definitely say, you know, even in the short time that I've seen you play, that now I see that moment where you're like, okay, it's done. You know, you might have a moment of, shall we call, self-reflection, but then you've moved on completely.
Flagellation might be a better word. So Matthew there is just caught right half a ball. Obviously, with his Irish, he's a very straight shooter. He's hoping there to hit dead center and stay relevant. He hasn't moved very far, though, and that's the beauty of getting good at those soft to medium pace clearances. Another part of my game that required a lot of work because, as most people who know me know, the harder I can swing it, the harder I will swing it. And it's great when you are hitting things straight, but if you catch only half a ball at 1,000,000 miles an hour, you're going to end up on the next lawn. So getting comfortable, taking a little pace off your swing, such as Matthew does with his Irish, where even if you don't hit the ball perfectly, you're guaranteed to only be 8-9 yards away from the area of the hoop where he is, then that's going to allow you to get back into the hoop after a couple of bad shots a lot easier than if you have to make a 15-yarder from the side boundary.
Looks like red has a potential in-off opportunity here, but I wanted to roll it back a little bit when Kyle made that shot where he came in close to the hoop. I'm thinking that Kyle was considering that even though Matthew had a shot at the hoop, it was angled. If Matthew wanted to clear red, he doesn't have a position, he doesn't keep a position in front of the hoop. What are ways, do you treat Hoop 11 a little bit differently? What are some plays that Matthew and Kyle can do to try and edge their ways a little bit closer to the hoop?
I mean, if I'm Kyle and I'm 6'4" down, I actually don't. I mean, I'll take the hoop if I can get it. But if I have the option not to do this in-off, I'll probably not do it just because I'm not guaranteed to get control of hoop 12. Typically, that's a great shot from Matthew. So typically a steep in-off like that, because that looks almost 90 degrees from our perspective, you may only run the hoop by a couple of feet. And then, obviously, the hoop could be in your backswing. We talked earlier about the peg being in your way. It's absolutely critical that you get hoop 12. So if I'm Kyle here, I actually am going to turn down the in-off, unless it's absolutely necessary that I just run this hoop, or otherwise Matthew will steal it from me. And we can see in that situation, he very clearly was not attempting to do the in-off. He was giving himself a little more space on the hoop. So Kyle here is going to try to elongate this hoop a little bit more until he can get that sort of controlled position where he has the opportunity to run it down with pace down to hoop 12. If you're Matthew, again, even just his general strategy is he'll take any hoop shot that you give him within reason. But Matthew, being 6'4" up, knows that he just needs to make this hoop, put the game away. So even if you give him a 6-yard angled hoop shot, he has a lot more incentive for shooting that than Kyle does, because Kyle kind of is banking on getting maybe a 3-yard straight-on shot that he can run comfortably.
Yeah, if you're the player
That's
down,
another great shot.
as Kyle is in the situation, you're really trying to generate, get in a position where you can control 11 down to 12 as much as possible. In that Yeah, I guess it's a matter of, do you go, a few more rotations that potentially end up making you lose the game, or you could just. That was a nice clearance. Unfortunately,
Very
went on the
nice.
wrong side
Yeah.
of the hoop, so Matthew's got an opportunity to put in a block, forcing Red to make a clearance. But yeah, it's just, do you go for a hoop, like a cheap hoop there at hoop 11 with the in off, and then hope that everything goes well at 12, or do you just give yourself the best opportunity to get down at 12? And I tend, these days, I now tend to favor, like, I'm okay losing 7-4 if I give myself the best opportunity to get down to 12.
And that is sort of the thought process, I think, which is if you're going to lose the game anyway. Oh, so I don't know if that was a double target or if he
I feel
just
like that was a
hit a
double
bad
target.
clearance. If you're going to lose the game anyway, you might as well give yourself every opportunity not to lose the game, right? So if I do a very steep in off like that, that's going to only get me through a few feet, and then all of a sudden he gets a wire and I have to pre-clear, and I'm going to lose 7-5. I might have felt better if I lost 7-4, but I knew that I was fighting to go to the hook, right? And I find that having adopted that mindset, I have to actually look through the stats, but I find most of my recent losses when I'm in this 6-4 down position actually are at the hook. And I think it just, once you adapt to that multi-hoop thinking, where you say it's not good enough just to run the hoop, I have to run the hoop with a plan in mind for the next hoop, then you start to just last a little bit longer in those moments where you're successful. And now I would probably say that after 7-6, most of my losses are probably 7-4 when I'm in that position. So because sometimes it just does not work.
Yeah.
And just in this case, unfortunately for Kyle, it did not work. So Matthew does take the first game 7-4. And again, just with that sort of idea of like, being okay with your decision making. If I'm Kyle, I'm not trying to think to myself, I should have taken that in off, because losing 7-4 and losing 7-5 at the end of the day is still a loss on paper. So he did what he had to do, or felt what he had to do, in order to win that game. And unfortunately, oh my goodness, what a shot from Malcolm. Okay, so the curve of the court gave a little assistance there, as you can see on the camera. And Malcolm has managed to get into the jaws of 6. We joined them with Robert 3-2 up, so this game a little bit more even than the last one. Malcolm might just be finding his tempo.
Oh, Robert definitely came out of the gates firing in the first game.
Yeah. So obviously you three are brothers. You being the oldest, and I believe Robert's the middle, and Malcolm is the youngest. So I'm the oldest of 3 brothers as well. Neither of them play croquet, much to my chagrin. Most players, I would say, who play Robert, myself included, have a tendency to maybe be a bit intimidated, maybe be like, oh my goodness, this is the Robert Fletcher that I'm playing, and I have to play the best croquet I've ever played to have a chance. I imagine the dynamic or the thinking is a little different for the two of you, and maybe based on the fact that Malcolm did beat him in the block. I don't know if that intimidation factor is always present. If it's just, oh, this is just Robert, big brother.
Yeah, I think it's having, as you mentioned, you're one of 3 brothers. So there's, it's brothers playing against each other. It more leans towards, I really want to beat, the other one, but we're very close, have always been, and so we always wish the best for each other. However, Robert is Robert, so he's
Killer.
or a really tough competitor, unfortunately. It's. I guess the way that we think about it is we have spurred each other on by always. We didn't always even play against each other in practice since we were kids. We were, always practicing with each other, and I think that was a great thing, that we were always with someone else that helped us get better. Like, okay, you see someone else is playing really well, and then we'd end with like a friendly match. So
Robert's shooting at this. My goodness.
Wow.
So black might just be, I can see a gap between the right upright and the black ball. So my suspicion is that it's sort of maybe glued to the left leg, and Malcolm is looking at this as if it's got quite
the way
an
that
angle.
Malcolm's looking at that.
So not that Robert had much of an option if black was runnable, but very high risk there if you're not careful of putting a ball through. And we did see that Robert did do that the other day in his match.
Which, yes, he did.
So, and that was on, I believe, hoop 9 against Kyle in that first game that Kyle won.
True.
And
Yeah.
when we were
Yeah,
wondering
it's
why he
definitely a
didn't do
very
the jump shot.
risky option. If you do pull it off, it feels amazing.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
just
you're like-
depends on
Like,
how
see,
long.
I am the best. South boundary get you out of the jaws of 6. But yeah, so I imagine that, it's very interesting to me, and I do wish that, I had personal experience with it, that if I were playing a sibling of mine, even if I knew that that sibling was, on paper, the better player than me, it's like the mystique is not there. It's like
No, the mystique is very much,
like-
fades away. But
you're just another opponent to me.
that's it. It's
Albeit that looks a lot like me.
we very much, I guess the thing is, we're very much aware of like how we play. So there's no well, I wonder what so and so is going to do. It's like no, I know, like it feels very natural in that way. It is a true joy to play with each other in team events. So that's something that we were very like we had when we first started playing in 2006. We went down to watch the Rick Robertson Shield, and we were just little kids just beginning to play, and we saw people playing in Australia at Rich River. Oh, that's a great shot.
Yeah, great. So that's one of those moments where Robert decided, I've been given a hoop shot, time to just take it.
It's just one of those moments we really have to pull the trigger. Anyway, so from that point, we really wanted to play for Australia together, and we had the opportunity to do that in the Rick Robertson Shield in 2017 in Mission Hills, which is a beautiful club with beautiful lawns.
It is, which I heard you were the star of that show, is what has been reported to me.
The what, sorry?
In the 2017 McRob, I heard that you were one of the driving forces of Australia's victory, MVP, so to speak.
I had a pretty good debut. I was very happy with that. I worked hard for that. I definitely really appreciated the flatness of the lawns, like how good it is to play at a venue such as Mission Hills, where we were in fact playing on tennis lawns, which normally
Yes.
if I would heard that in Australia, I'd be sort of wondering, oh dear, what are we up for? But they were flatter than any croquet court I'd been on. And I was fortunate to play very well in that. It's just great when you can play on a venue where you play a shot and it ends up going where you're aiming at.
And if any of you at home are trying to convince a club that you belong to get croquet, instead of if they're not biting on just putting in croquet courts, get them to put in some grass tennis courts and just use them for croquet. They actually are a perfectly viable service. So there's middle grounds that can be reached. And if they already do have grass tennis courts, slowly.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you definitely can benefit from with croquet is that the dimensions of a tennis lawn are the same as, or close enough to a croquet lawn. There is a lot of history with a coexistence between tennis and croquet. You can actually go visit. I don't know if you've had the opportunity yet, Tom, to when you're in London, they have the Wimbledon All Tennis and Croquet Lawn Club. They have a little section dedicated there in the museum to croquet. And the history was that initially they were coexisting at the same time. Of course, tennis has taken off a lot more in recent years. Croquet's still waiting for its moment, which actually is getting in some of the sporting and country clubs in the USA, in Spain. It's taking off quite a lot, really taking advantage of the shorter version of the two games, in this case GC. So you are a croquet pro.
Yes.
Do you want to talk to us a little bit about how that works? For those at home who maybe aren't aware of what that means, can you walk through what that means?
Yes. So obviously programs vary from club to club, and I think if you ask most of my peers, their weeks look a little different than mine. So I obviously, as I mentioned earlier, teach up in Linville, North Carolina at Grandfather Golf and Country Club, and as well as Linville Golf Club. And we're basically, our job consists of putting on clinics, group clinics for our students, as well as private lessons. We also are in charge of running club events such as tournaments, invitationals. If there's a USCA tournament that wants to be put on in our events, we typically are the tournament directors. So we're just basically in charge of making sure the hoops are right, everything but lawn maintenance. That's normally handled by the golf maintenance crew, and helping our members acquire equipment, deal with the repairs on their equipment. You know, if their Oakley mallet shaft has gotten a little twisted, you know, making sure that we can help them with that. So just making sure that all croquet related needs are met, but the majority of it's going to be instruction on the court with, I do groups of 8, you know, double banked on a court, and just making sure that everybody is getting a little bit better at the game every day, enjoying it every day, making sure that they are feeling fulfilled in the sport, and running interclubs, trying to find new ways to get more people involved, you know, doing outreach events, things like that. So, and every club it's going to be different. Some clubs are very private lesson heavy, one-on-one instructions. Some are very clinic heavy, such as mine. I do majority clinics, not private lessons. But it just depends on the demand and need of your members. They always come first, as they should. And just making sure that when they walk onto the lawn, if they're smiling, they walk off the lawn with a bigger smile, and making sure everyone enjoys their time with it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of, people skills as well that play into that. From what I understand, there's also, depending on maybe the club you're at, which could be different between, you know, club to club. There might be some more event driven. You mentioned yours more clinic driven. How long actually have you been a croquet pro?
So I graduated from college during the pandemic back in 2020, and I was going to go to law school, decided at the last moment not to because I met several retired lawyers through croquet, and they said, well, you could be a good lawyer and make a lot of money, but you won't be playing a lot of croquet for the next however many years. And I said, well, I don't want my life to look like that, so I'm not going to do that.
You made the right choice.
So croquet was already making decisions in my life based on my career path, but I never really had sort of figured out that croquet teaching was a viable career option for me. And David Maloof reached out to me in the winter of 2021 to tell me that he was planning to retire and was looking for a replacement up at his club, and if I would be interested in coming to do that summer as an apprentice to him. So he was going to stay an extra year beyond his retirement. Plans to teach me, make sure I knew the program inside and out, because it was a very involved, busy program. We have 64 players that we teach twice a week.
Oh, wow.
So, plus events and everything. So he took me in, taught me for a whole summer how to be a pro, how to be a better player, made me to the player that I am right now. So I do owe him quite a lot, both in my professional life and in my competitive life.
Well, that's a great start to have. Having known David for, having the pleasure to know David for a few years myself, he's a fantastic role model in both the skills that he has, how he plays on the lawn, but also the way he treats his opponents and the respect that he has for the game and the people who play it. So I think that you were very fortunate to start off, you know, with a guide such as David.
It has been a godsend because before that I actually had no formal instruction in playing. So my game was self-taught and then hobbled together from just tips I was picking up at tournaments from various top-level players. And David spent an entire summer basically whooping me, you know, on the court, and then proceeding to teach me how not to get whooped again. So it was a baptism by fire. We would
it seems to have worked out really well.
Before clinics started, he would bring me out there every morning, and I'd have to play a game of golf croquet with him. And, you know, I was about 24 at the time, and David was in his late 60s. And I don't know if a 24-year-old ego was prepared to be beat almost daily by a 60-something-year-old man. I mean, I think I won like 3 games in the course of a whole 15-week summer.
Learned some humility.
But it taught me a lot of lessons about what I needed to improve on.
Yeah.
Not just golf croquet, but croquet in general. And then obviously, you know, I would teach, I would make mistakes. He would pull me to the side and say, listen, you know, do this differently. You have to learn this skill. And I owe him a lot for the career that I've had and for the life that I'm able to lead now. And I don't know where I'd be without him. So big thank you to David Maloof, who is down watching his son play, and his wife Mika,
David and Kyle.
Yeah, the whole Maloof clan have done wonderful things for not just myself, but for a lot of people in croquet. They are some of the finest people you'll ever meet. So I just want to give them that shout out where they deserve it.
Just double clicking on that, Tom mentioned that he had the ability to play against someone such as David's caliber, but also it was always within. It's important to have players that you can learn from. Like, I know there are a lot of people who they want to get better, but they don't go out and seek better players, people who can teach them. It may not even be literal lessons. It can be just you're playing against somebody, you learn from the competitiveness, you learn from, okay, this time, like, it didn't quite work out. And having the right people around you that help generate that feeling where it's okay to, lose. Like, it's a matter of, like, I'm learning from this. It's not a matter of anything other than, like, I can get better from this point in time. So having the right people around you that help generate that feeling, I think is super critical, which we were fortunate, my brothers and I, that's kind of the environment we had for each other, that we spurred each other on by, even if it wasn't, we didn't go out there and teach each other necessarily. If we learned something, we were all doing it together and had an environment where it was a friendly competitiveness.
So if any members are out there who are debating if they should do tournaments and or are thinking, oh, I'm not good enough, I see these guys play and I can't go out here and compete, don't listen to that little voice of doubt. It will make you better, even if you don't win a game. If you
Absolutely.
Circling back to the MAC, I think in 3 straight weeks of competition, I won 1 match, which was doubles with my partner Jeff Sue, and that was in the last week. So I had spent 2 weeks just straight up, losing, and I decided I was going to walk away from that event taking 3 or 4 positive things that I need to work on. And I really do, as much as it is a painful memory of how bad the defeat was, it really was a milestone event in terms of my development as a croquet player. And I attribute it to a lot of the success I've had over the last 2 years since then as to what it showed me that I needed to be and what it showed me I wasn't. So take your losses, play tournaments as often as you can. You will get infinitely more skilled than you ever thought possible.
That is a fantastic way of thinking, like a positive way of thinking, and it truly has. You are the poster boy of that point of way of thinking, because you really have benefited from that. You've built yourself up, got to the semifinals of the AC World Championships, continually getting to the pointy end of tournaments, if not winning them, and your game has gone, through the roof. So actually, the first time I met Tom was last year in Sydney at the Fletcher Sharp Invitational, where he and Steve Morgan came down to play. This event's going to be held this year in April from, I believe, the 23rd to the 27th of April. And we were fortunate enough to have Tom and Stephen down there as our players from America. It was a great event. And speaking of Australia, we've actually got another event coming up pretty soon.
Yes, we do, that we will be both competing at. So the Openshaw Shield, the World Golf Croquet Team Championships. Great hoop from Malcolm.
Wow, great
My
shot.
goodness. All right. And by the way, while we've been on other things, Robert has pulled ahead. It was 3-2 a few minutes ago. Robert is now in the lead 4-6, but Malcolm is clawing his way back. And we might see a similar situation here that we saw in the Kyle and Matthew game for Malcolm, where he's going to be looking to try to get control of 12 off of this hoop. But first, he's got to get that yellow ball.
Yeah, so this is one of those interesting... Okay, so it hasn't quite ended up like this, but oftentimes you'll end up with blue a little bit closer to yellow. So let's say it's within the, I'll say 8 yards from yellow. There is a line of thought where you just even then put it in and do a clearance shot with black from where it is. Given that you're, as we've learned, a very dynamic player, you play to your strengths at the time, it's probably hard for you to answer exactly how you might do it, but do you want to walk us through what the 2 options are, and if you do clear with the first ball, why you're doing that?
Yeah, so obviously everyone's familiar with how close hoop 10 and 11 are, just such as hoop 4 and 5 are in a similar way. If the first ball to the hoop, yellow in this case, gets a great position, typically your first ball that did not run the hoop or was not cleared away can be a lot closer. So let's say that, as Malcolm did, he runs hoop 10 with black. Often blue is in some position near the hoop. It wasn't in this case, but it would be significantly closer to yellow. And there's a lot of players who would be tempted to do a pre-clear there and hit it with a soft to medium pace, try to stay around the hoop. The reason for that being is that you can miss that shot.
Yep.
And if you miss that shot and that yellow ball is as in good position as it is, there's nothing to be done. You've lost the hoop, and in this case, if Robert runs this, he'll have lost the game.
Yep.
So it's basically a hedging your bets maneuver. You're saying, okay, I could hit that long clearance, and I might, but given the short distance of this clearance and the belief that I'll hit well enough to fight out this hoop, I'm just going to do a pre-clear right now and just try and level the playing field. The other reason might be is that if Robert's second ball is also close and you just set in, he might also clear you. I've done that as well plenty of times where if I set with yellow and you set with blue and my red ball is not far away and I think you might make that long clearance, I'm going to prevent you from being rewarded for that. I'm going to try to medium pace clear your other ball away. So, yeah, you can blast away at my yellow ball.
Sure.
I'm just going to come right back, and I'm still the only one with the ball in front of the hoop.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that the other ball, the placement of your opponent where they are also plays a factor because they may also, if they're clearing you, you might be like, well, what's the point of giving them a closer shot? I would rather get I want to generate another opportunity, go a few more rotations on this hoop. I'm willing to take that risk. But I don't know. I don't know about you, but I think about it a little bit differently for between 4 and 5 than between 10 and 11. I don't know if that's a mistake of mine or something that I need to work on, but I definitely think even though it's a mirror position, I don't necessarily think about it the same way.
Well, typically the situation of the game is very different by the time you've gotten to hoop 11. So at hoop 5, obviously it's still sort of early to mid stages of the game. It might be 2-2 and there's no clear, leader yet or who's playing better. Worst case scenario, it's 4-0 and, you as the person playing 0 have to start getting creative or aggressive if you want to build up. And we actually saw that in the last game. But Malcolm did win hoop 5 from 4-0 down off of a couple of really good clearances. By hoop 11, there's typically, best case scenario, you're 5-5, and you can just sort of play it straight. Oftentimes, if it's 6-4 either direction, there's a lot of pressure on both parties. 6 to just close the game out as quickly as possible. 4 to try and get control of that alley because it's no longer, I'd like to take the alley. It's I have to. I lose the game if I don't. Mm-hmm. So I think that added pressure does sort of change the dynamic of hoop 11 over hoop 5 just because of, the situation. I think in a 19-point game, I've noticed that goes away.
Yeah, you did mention
if you're conscious of if you're 6-4 or 5-5 at hoop 11 in a 19-point game, you both still have 4 or 5 points left to be scored. It's much like being at hoop 5 in a 13-point game. So when I noticed that, I would say that I realized that the pressure or the thought of hoop 11 is largely based upon just the in-game pressure that you're experiencing because you're so close to the finish line.
Yeah, they had a great example yesterday at how a 19-pointer game can change that tactical play between 10, 11, 12 because you experienced a 7-2 lead against Matthew Essick, I believe, in the previous tournament you played, the Mountain View Lake, and ended up being you ended up winning at the hook at 10-9.
Yeah,
but
and that was only because he missed a hoop shot.
Typically, that would mean the 7-2 you'd already won, but there's a lot more of the game left there to play.
It's much more, like we said, sort of like a best-of-5 match or a best-of-3 match. It's an endurance competition more than a 13-point game. And a 13-point game, to a certain degree, is a sprint compared to these longer forms. Ooh, and Matthew has a smooth swing there, hits the middle of the hoop, but just pops back out and
It
a
looked
little
like
bit
a
off
really,
to the right.
solid hoop shot, but it did pop out.
Those have been happening. So these super hoops, even though the ground is quite soft, they are very heavy. They are very significantly in the ground.
Yeah, I guess it's a matter, from my...
And they have
obviously
been
not as hard as in Virginia, but I think they've been holding up, pretty well, these hoops. To a point, they can, at anywhere really, end up loosening up, but people have been doing a good job in the morning, those who have been setting the hoops and getting them ready for play.
So you have to be careful here if you're Matthew. I don't know exactly, and it looks like we just switched back over, but I don't know exactly what Blue's position was, how glued to the hoop, but the direction he cleared red, he couldn't really cut it much more than he did. Might give a long in-off, or at least a double target. And Kyle might be very tempted in that earlier stage of the game to take a shot at that. I'm just going to take this moment. We have, actually, a couple of my members are in the chat. So shout out to Dick Runderman, who's watching this with his wife Nancy, two of my members, who, by the way, have done exactly what I have hoped they would do and started playing tournaments.
Fantastic.
And have gotten a lot better as a result of playing tournaments very quickly. So proof is in the pudding there. So shout out to you guys. And then also Jane Behariel says that she agrees that playing against better players and in tournaments, when she started AC, she played Brian Cumming and Leo McBride, and it made her a lot better just even if she was sitting on the sidelines during their game watching them run a break on her. And that is the basic truth of any croquet that you play. If you are playing someone who knows what they're doing and is better, even if you're not getting the opportunity to hit shots, you will see firsthand what makes them better and what decisions they're making. If I could give a sort of recommendation for what to do at home, now that we have all these videos, is look up a video of a match that you haven't seen before, whether it be AC or GC, and pause the video at moments where you're not sure what you would do and you're not sure what the player's about to do, and try to work through it. Say, okay, based on where I see the balls, this is what I would attempt to do. Unpause, see what that player decides, and try to work out, if you disagreed with them, where the disagreement might have come from and why their option may or may not be better. That's something I did in my very early learning stages before my first tournament in American rules, because I knew basically how to run a break, but I didn't know about leaves. I didn't know about, how to make my breaks easier. I was running a very loose break. So something that you can do is just watch, question, learn, take notes. But playing in tournaments really does give you that experience that I could teach you clinics until I'm blue in the face and you're tired of hearing my voice. And you'll learn a lot. We'll cover a lot of stuff, but you have to go out and put it in practice. And once again, Mr. Rindleman is one of our members. By the way, another one of my members, Chris Barley.
Oh, really?
Who is, like we said earlier, one of the sponsors for the streaming
Thanks,
of this
Chris.
event.
Shout out to Chris.
And Chris also, when he first got into croquet, he was actually playing at this event, for those who do not know, but unfortunately he started feeling under the weather and he had to drop out prematurely. And he also played at the previous World Championship. So
yeah, that was the first time I met Chris, which is true pleasure. He loves the sport as much as anyone else, and has shown that not only by his great play on the lawns, but also his generous donation in order to help make this event happen.
Very dedicated. He started playing tournaments almost immediately as soon as he started learning croquet, and he never passes up an opportunity to go compete, and it has propelled him to be the best member at my club in terms of skills, and one of the better players across the entire United States who you constantly see at these events and is able to take games. Has beaten me, has beaten Matthew, has taken games off of most of the higher ranked players in the United States at different times. So, and he only started playing this game, I believe, in his 50s.
Wow.
And he's in his 60s now, so, and still very competitive. So for those of you watching who are thinking, oh, I'm too old to be as good as these guys, look how young they are and everything. David, for his credit, was in the World Final in 2016, I believe, at the age of 62 against Stephen Mulliner, who was also 62. And David had only started playing croquet, I believe, in his 40s.
Yeah, he started late in the game and ended up playing the final, I believe, even on this exact same lawn against Stephen Mulliner, which was an epic battle, and it went to 5 games. They even had to bring out the floodlights on the side and take the final game.
As you can see, we have here just in case.
Yeah, so, just to finish on that thought that Tom had, or that point I should say, about tournament play. There's a lot you can get from playing in tournaments, whether they be at this level, whether they be at a more local level or a state level. And even if it's coming to watch and play, you might find that you learn a lot just being there. I'd say there were a very friendly group as well, so you're very welcome to come down and watch.
Yes, ask questions.
This event itself, from my understanding, is going to be held here for the next few years in February, second week, I believe, which is fantastic news. It's been a lot of work by a lot of members at the club here, the USCA's obviously being helped facilitate this, and Bill Simmons has been working for, I believe, many hundreds of hours in order to make this happen. So really grateful for all the work that he's put into make this tournament happen and continue in the future.
And we should give a shout out and say thank you to the members of the National Croquet Center Club who have gratefully given up their lawns to us and been able for us to put on this event. So we do take up a lot of space, as you can see, a lot of equipment around, a lot of pipes, a lot of lights, and obviously a lot of people taking up their lawn space. So they are very gracious to us to allow us to come into their club and host these events. And so Robert with the longer jump attempt, and it looks like he maybe nicked the crossbar on the left-hand side. I can't tell from this angle.
I've been having a bit of hard time getting height, so I'm pretty impressed by that. Obviously not what the result is looking for. In the background, I just saw some people wandering at these small lawns set up at the back. I believe this venue is going to grow with a few more lawns, I believe. Do you know anything about that, Tom?
Yeah, so I've heard of plans at various stages to add more lawns there in the background. So you can see that people down there are kind of in a depression. So typically that's been 9 wicket. And they host sort of maybe some social events there or some outside events. They've done some Special Olympics events there. But there have been plans for a while to make more additional regulation 6-wicket lawns. So I forget off the top of my head how many of them that the plan accounts for. They've drawn up a diagram somewhere. And, so I'm getting a note from Mr. Dilly that the plan is to add 5 lawns to the existing 12. So that would bring this up to a 17-lawn facility.
Wow.
Which could almost sustain a world championship just on its own. And there are other clubs around this. World championships have been hosted here before with the use of a couple of satellite venues, but 17 lawns would almost allow them to completely be self-sufficient in hosting a world championship.
From my understanding, with the latest note from the WCF, it's limited at the moment, the current AC World Championships, to 64 players with the potential to add more depending on the availability of lawns, and I'm not sure if that is taking into account the potential new lawns coming in here later on this year. Either way, it's super exciting to see.
Another group we should shout out while we have a moment is the generous sponsors for the Pro-Am that was hosted the day before this tournament began, a large part of why this tournament was made possible. So a lot of the players who participated in this tournament who were able to make it a day early played in a one-day Pro-Am golf croquet event with the various sponsors. My partner is actually here in the chat, Miss Kim Beatty. We had a great time. She's a wonderful player, and this was her first competitive experience, she told me.
Wow.
She lives up in Vermont and is not normally able to attend a lot of events. And so very educational for her, she told me, and it was very fun, and I'm glad that we're able to give people those experiences and hope to see you at more tournaments.
Yeah.
But thank you to everybody who did donate their time, their money, their effort, and their passion to making events like this possible. More of these are popping up, not only here in the United States, but like the Fletcher Sharp Invitational across the world. And it will only help the game of croquet grow, become more exposed to popular culture, and hopefully attract that younger audience that we've been looking for so many years of athletic.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of momentum building up, and tournaments play a huge role in that, being able to set up tournaments such as this. And also the Fletcher Sharp Invitation that Tom mentioned helps to not only create tournaments for people to play in, which is in general is great, but also for the younger players that Tom alluded to who are able to get together and have like great competitive games.
Oh, it's a great shot from Malcolm. So we're going to hone back in here on the actual play. We've sort of gone a couple circular routes, but so we want to make sure that we give you guys our thoughts on what we're doing here. So this is game 3. Robert won the second game 7-4, so Malcolm got a little bit further there. And currently Malcolm is up in this game 2-0, so off to a much stronger start. But Robert here has fairly good control of hoop 3. But he's overrolled that set, which is very unusual.
He was coming in really close to that hoop there.
Yeah. He's playing in very tight to the hoop. I find that with my touch on some of these lawns being a little bit less precise than Robert's, I am typically against playing in so close to the hoop from those perpendicular angles. So, playing from a right angle from the side boundary, the cone of opportunity, as I refer to it and others refer to it, is very narrow. So if you overroll it even by a little bit or come up a little bit short, you don't have a makeable hoop shot. Whereas if you aim back from the hoop maybe a yard or two, like for instance, if Robert had aimed a yard further back, red would be runnable.
It's ended up like this. I don't know if it necessarily was what Robert was thinking of, but he does have an opportunity to do a nice block on yellow. So as at this point, Malcolm really needs to clear yellow with blue. I'm assuming that he can see at least the south side, north side of the yellow ball. Yeah, looks like that what he was aiming at. In those situations, you might, if yellow had been on the leg, it's fair game to aim at the hoop leg, especially if you hit it hard enough, it can fly out of the hoop there. So that's definitely something that if your opponent does end up in the hoop, you should go over there and check to see where it's actually resting, where the center of the mass of the ball is, because you might end up having an easier shot than you might expect.
So Robert here will be just looking to clear this, cut it slightly to the back boundary. You don't want to cut it too much over to the corner because Robert's ball is not very deep in the jaws, and the more towards the corner that he would cut it, the more chance Malcolm would have of just hitting it out from the side.
Yeah, that's a good point. If yellow had been in the jaws properly, Robert would have put more effort into cutting black there, because at the moment there definitely is a relatively straight shot, albeit from the boundary, for a black to play jump shot. But as Tom pointed out, yellow isn't quite in the jaws, so you really want to basically hedge your bets and get it out on the boundary with a bit of an angle.
So in the game that Malcolm played against Robert in the block, he did win it off of jumping Robert at hoop 12 to get in the jaws of the hoop. Robert was blocking him, and Malcolm went for the aggressive jump shot. We'll see if he can replicate those results here from 7 yards.
Oh, wow.
And it was a very good effort. The height was perfect. He judged it. He judged the lawn very well, just a little bit off the right wire there. And you can see from the spin, he actually has ended up maybe 3 yards directly the other side of the hoop. So as we were mentioning earlier, jump shots do generate a lot of top spin. One of the reasons that you'll see good players. Okay, so
got a little bit of luck
second
there.
prize. Couldn't stop him from running the hoop, but you could stop him from getting in position.
I've seen amazing things happen with jump shots. Sometimes you'll have balls which will like sit on top of the other ball in the hoop, and it'll be spinning
for like a moment, and like spin there,
and then it'll flick it out and go through. The worst one is if you end up hitting crossbar, hitting the ball in the hoop and flicking it through. That is always a heartbreaker.
Yeah. So Malcolm now getting the first opportunity to get to the hoop. And that looks like a very good set, maybe a yard or two straight in front of the hoop. And where yellow has ended up, black will have the opportunity just to turn to the right there and try to clear yellow over to the west boundary. Be fairly aggressive.
I reckon Malcolm will take it. But as Tom mentioned, it is a more aggressive option.
Yeah.
It does have a lot to do with Malcolm's going to check the angle on blue. Let's say blue couldn't run the hoop, then Malcolm would forego that. But as it turns out, he's pretty happy with the shot he's got on the hoop. So
this looks to be about 7 yards. The downside of this is that if Robert does make the return clearance, black is nowhere near the hoop. So you are sort of banking on one long miss from Robert, and you then need to run the hoop in the next shot. If red did somehow manage to block him on that shot, which I don't think he did based on the fact that he took this, clearing red would not really be helpful to you. Red will come immediately right back, and the direction that Robert is shooting would put yellow just off the side boundary. So it's hoop or nothing for Malcolm if Robert misses this. If Robert hits it, then obviously he's going to have to do what he has to do. But
Great shot.
and unfortunately, Robert has hit. Malcolm will now have a fairly long shot to save this hoop, and unfortunately he'll be clearing up into the lawn, which we've said before on these broadcasts that you do want to clear on into the lawn to get your opponent further away in most situations, but that's normally if you have your other ball in position and you are worried about them hitting, such as what Malcolm just did a second ago. This is actually much more detrimental because if you don't hit this in the middle, you have a lot more distance your ball can travel away from the hoop than if you were clearing over to the side. Now he's hit that
that's
really
about as
well.
good as you could expect at that pace.
Really well. You see the ball jumps just a little bit when it hit that. I suspect it's because it rolled over that seam where the old hoop holes were. And when it hits the other ball, it's not quite on the ground. And that actually causes the ball to sort of pop, maintain a lot of its own momentum, and travel just a little bit further than it would if it hit it perfectly flat.
Yeah, these lawns are really great for hard clearances because they're quite flat. But there are places around the hoop, as Tom mentioned, where old hoop holes and they can come into play.
Yeah. This was something that happened a lot in the lawns at Virginia, where the Worlds were, and we mentioned that the other day, which was the lawns being a lot bumpier. A lot of your clearances, even from shorter distances, when you're hitting dead in the middle, the ball would sometimes pop up in the air. So it was very difficult to guarantee that you would get what we refer to in the States as a stop shot. I believe most other places refer to it as a stun shot.
Yeah, it's kind of split these days in Australia. I think the newer people call it a stop shot, but that's if they haven't played AC. So I tend to find that AC players tend to call it a stun shot because a stop shot is an actual croquet stroke in AC.
So for those of you who play in this country, for those of you who play AC or American rules, you are familiar with a stop shot where the two balls are in contact and you stop your mallet at the bottom of the swing so that the front ball goes a very long way and yours doesn't go very far at all. In my experience, teaching at a bunch of various clubs as I travel around, there has become a misunderstanding based on the terminology of what a stop shot is in golf croquet. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that at some point black or red was going to try to do a stop shot on the other from that position they're in. Do not stop your mallet. I see it all the time. Even some fairly experienced players who come from American rules and things like that, they think that they're supposed to stop their mallet, and that causes the ball to actually stop. It doesn't. And it can be easily demonstrated if you watch the top players play. They're hitting all of their shots with a smooth follow-through. The only time that they're not is if the balls are in such close proximity that they might double tap if they were to finish their follow-through. But if there's a foot or more, any significant distance between the balls, they're playing it with a smooth follow-through, and the only thing that's going to cause your ball to stop is center ball contact, flat center ball contact.
The thing you want is that center ball contact. I think it's one of those easy, I guess, to misinterpret because swings or shots, because you see, especially at a less competitive level, people will be playing stun shots from a closer distance, and they might see someone not moving the mallet forward with a follow-through, and then they equate that with the stun that they've just made on the ball, but in reality, it's just to prevent the double tap.
Right. And and a lot of people, I think, intuitively just, when they translate from AC and American rules, they don't really ever stop to question it or think about it. But once you present it to them, I like to pose the question when I have students who believe that. I say, why do you need to stop your mallet? Explain to me what it does for that shot. And as soon as you question that, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, right, yeah, no, of course.
Think about it for a little bit.
Right, that would mean absolutely nothing because the ball's already left my mallet. But I think a lot of players just haven't been exposed to that idea yet, and they just are copying what they've either been taught or what they've just seen others do. Or they heard the name stop shot, and they just thought, okay, I guess I'm supposed to do it by stopping my mallet because I've seen other people do it that way. So For those of you out there who are maybe looking for a quick tip to improve your golf croquet game, if you want to get better at stop shots, stop stopping your mallet. All it's doing is causing you to potentially twist and alter the path of your mallet. It's putting tension back into your hands. Oh my goodness, that is such bad luck. Robert made an amazing clearance and accidentally put black through the hoop by a couple of yards.
That is a heartbreaking thing to do. I was on the receiving end of that.
I was very generous at hoop one in
You
that
were
game.
very generous of that.
Mine was a little bit riskier. That one you do not expect.
It's
I mean, at that distance, at that angle, it's,
it's never a great feeling unless you're on the other side. So we've actually got a question from Ben Rothman regarding the Open Shore tournament, which we referred to earlier on in this broadcast, which is going to be played in Tasmania in Launceston, which is the golf croquet version of the McRobertson Shield. So it's a Team World Championship. That's going to be played, as I mentioned, in Launceston next month in Tassie. Ben asked Greg, Robbie, and Ed follow suit and grow moustaches for the Open Shore. Well, I'd say that anything's possible.
You already kind of have one.
I'm
just
kind of
sitting
like
here.
bringing one out at the moment. I think that there is a non-zero possibility of this happening.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Okay, so almost
Did it-
made the hoop from the penalty area.
That was a speculative double.
Yeah.
One that you
That would have
called-
been-
the one
that
you
would have been
call
miraculous.
when you get the shot.
Yeah.
That's the one you're like, okay, yeah, I was definitely going for that.
And you'll notice that the ball had a moment where it sort of stops. And if you look at where the ball's lying, it's almost in the exact same line he started in, but behind the hoop. The ball stops and there's all that topspin that's like trying to keep it moving forward, so it almost hangs on the stanchion for a minute but then it obviously pops off, spins around the hoop. So if the angle had just been slightly different, that spin may have been enough to pull him through the hoop, even just if he had started maybe an inch south of where he was, because he hit that very solidly right in the middle. I actually, before our match, I was just hitting balls back over to the first corner, and I ended up making hoop 12 from the penalty area.
Yeah.
And, we were both like, how did that happen? So you'd be amazed.
It is possible.
With spin is your friend, as I often
Yes.
say. So you'd be amazed with the powers of good topspin, what can happen to your ball.
This gives Malcolm the opportunity to rush peel his ball through hoop 6.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Not what he was looking for.
And again, spin. That was a weird angle for that blue ball to behave that way. Obviously, this is not the best camera angle to look at it from, but black was not very deep in the jaws, and he put black through very cleanly, but the blue ball somehow followed it and managed to lodge itself in the jaws of the hoop. So that's going to give Robert a good advantage at this hoop.
This changes the shot that Malcolm has to take here. He might have wanted to lag in, but in this case he has to clear. Malcolm was hoping, or I should say at least, was aiming for with that rush peel to get over to the next hoop. Something that he's missed that one there. Something, you mentioned you're a stronger hitter. You got a lot of power in your swing. So you're oftentimes, if you've got a ball in the hoop, you're always thinking like, is there a way that if my other ball is in the hoop running position, I'm trying to like peel that through and get my other ball, if the angle allows, to the next hoop.
Yeah, and you expect, worst case scenario that Malcolm was probably expecting is that he didn't deflect enough and his ball maybe ends up just a few yards away from hoop 6 with black on the back boundary. There was probably no concept in his mind that he could even get it in the jaws of 6 there. And I'd be very interested to see from a different camera angle, if one was available, maybe a top-down one, what that angle he was shooting at looked like. Because it just seemed like a weird thing for the ball to do from there. But with these camera angles, it's never 100% sure. So, So Robert runs hoop 7 cleanly all the way down to the south boundary. The only time it's generally considered acceptable to run behind the hoop if you set up long or, But from this position, if Malcolm fails to get to get a wire, then Robert will be able to clear him back up the lawn. And it's impossible to tell from this angle whether or not he did get it. We'll be able to find out if Robert elects to shoot black with yellow, whether or not red can see black. And it does not look like he's prepping to do so, so I imagine that red is open on the black ball. But Robert laying in a very tight yellow here. So it looks
Clearance.
maybe. If red can see black, he might just be, again, this sort of safety pre-clear where you say, fine, hit the black ball. You're not going to get a reward for it. Yeah, it is a clearance. Okay. And this is a great angle to see the swing. So if anyone watching at home wants to run that back and look at it, he was lined up a little bit to the right of that yellow ball. The swing itself was actually perfectly straight. You could see the ball going right between the line of his legs. But unfortunately, you could not see the yellow ball in there. So.
Yeah, he just narrowly missed on the right-hand side, so it's more of a aiming thing rather than swing. Malcolm does have a particularly straight swing. I'd say that people can maybe worry a little bit too much about their swing. It's something definitely you want to understand your swing. I think that's the most important thing. I've seen plenty of great players with maybe slightly idiosyncratic swings, but they end up hitting the ball like really straight. But at the end of the day, I'd say that you're really aiming for as minimal turn or curve or twist in your mallet, right, Tom?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been focusing on a lot this week, and just in general, but one thing that I've really contended with this week to get my game up to where I wanted was not rushing down out of the backswing, which is one of the more common sins of a croquet player, where you're so excited, you're so ready to hit the ball that you end up rushing out of the backswing and pushing on the mallet a little bit. You're trying to pull it to the ball. And this normally causes you to become too tense in your grip, to start to twist and affect the mallet, and all of a sudden you're hitting the ball in places that you didn't think you were pointed at because you weren't. So, just loosening up your grip, making sure that the weight of the mallet is the driving force of the swing, making sure that you're letting it get to the ball in its own time and not trying to force it, keep a good tempo. These are all things that even if your swing is crooked, even if you have a naturally crooked backswing, like my backswing is not 100% straight, I would say other than maybe Reg Bamford, I've never seen a player that had no crookedness anywhere in their swing. Maybe your brother, maybe Robert.
I'd say that Malcolm, more than like most players, has quite a straight swing. It's again something that I think the key point out of what Tom was saying there that you can learn from what he was saying was more about how can he not overcompensate with his swing. He obviously wants to work on making sure that it's as straight as possible, but at the end of the day, it's a matter of can he help guide the mallet rather than force it through. Like if you rush through with that forward swing, you're going to be potentially putting a little slight different angle on your mallet. It's also going to be different the next time around that you hit. You want to make it as repeatable as possible so that if there is weight in the head of your mallet, as I'd recommend you try and get a mallet that does have that more peripheral weighting, more weighting in the head. You can almost, the way I think about it is you can feel the weight of the mallet as it swings.
Yes.
It's just more of I'm not forcing it through. I'm a part of like the way that the natural swing and curve of the mallet goes.
Yes, and that's one of the things, and I think we mentioned this yesterday on the live stream when okay, so outside of the right wire there, so missed opportunity for Malcolm to take a more commanding lead. So Robert will have a chance to level here 4-4 with maybe about a 4-yard hoop attempt.
So we were talking yesterday about the Maloof strategy between 1 and 2 and whether it's better to just forego 2. Then we have another one here, whether you should make hoop 8 or to forego it.
So there's something that is talked about among the American top players called the honeycut gambit. made famous by Danny Honeycutt, who has been competing here in this tournament, and you heard from a little bit yesterday on the live stream. Sometime, this is before my time in croquet, but it's been relayed to me, and it's now quite a popular thing. Apparently, Mr. Honeycutt believed that he would rather, instead of being 4-4 and letting your opponent have the next shot to hoop 9, he would rather be down 5-3 or 3-5 and get the first shot to hoop 9. So he believed that he had a better chance of winning 3-5 down at hoop 9 than 4-4 with the opponent having the advantage. And so we call it, when you find yourself 3-5 down with the first shot to 9, that you're running the Honeycutt Gambit. And it is and I will say, it's not foolproof by far, but it is actually kind of impressive how many games you can win from the position of the Honeycutt Gambit. So you'll hear, maybe if you're around, these tournaments more often, if you hear someone say, all right, the Gambit is on, that's what they're referring to. So if I accidentally let that slip at any point throughout today, I'm referring to the Honeycutt
It's a good one to be aware of for the terminology.
And there is some sense to it insofar as if you are 4-4 down and give up the first shot to the next hoop, obviously it's a long distance away. If you miss your clearings and if they get a good position, they're going to go 5-4 up. And since it's an odd-numbered hoop, they have an opportunity to go 6-4 up fairly uncontested. Whereas if you are 3-5 down, you could easily be that person to run 9 and 10, level the game 5-5, and then and we talked a little bit about hoop 11 earlier, but easier on paper to get control of hoop 11 from hoop 10 than it is to get control of hoops 9 or 10 from hoops 8 or 9.
And for those at home, wondering like how players feel about that in general, I'd say most players, they might recognize these gambits, as it were, but at the end of the day, we try to nullify that by various factors, one of which is, in this case, it's a best of 5, so you want to eliminate perfect shots across the lawn, like maybe in one game where you do end up getting right in front of like 9 and you run 9, then 10, 11. Best of 5 will help to even that out. The other one is the conditions of play, of which we have the lawns themselves, so making sure they're at a flat but fast pace, ensuring that it does require a lot of skill in order to get in front of the hoop.
And this is a great
the hoops
angle
themselves.
Sorry to interrupt, Greg, but this is a great angle for people to sort of see the lineup of Robert and how he stalks the ball. So looks like he might be going for hoop here because he's been offered a bit of a double target.
Oh, and gets it. Okay.
And I mean, as you can see from there, and we weren't exactly straight on, but he is very straight lined up on that shot. He's not, his toes are pointed at the hoop, his mouth's pointed at the hoop, his whole body is just focused in on the target. And that's what you want. You want, a lot of us, myself included sometimes our eyes get adjusted a certain way to our stance and we just sort of get a lean over time and all of a sudden we're aiming a couple of degrees off the ball and we don't even notice it. Malcolm's not gonna like that. Rolled just a little too far, caught the hill, was headed for the hoop and just rolled around the hoop to right behind it. But as I was saying, the straighter you are, the better you're able to stalk the shot, as you saw Robert doing there, backing up, looking at your line, and the more sort of squared on the target that you are, the less chance you have of hitting a ball in a wrong direction. And then from there, it goes back to what we were saying of letting the mallet do the work. Obviously, he could be as lined up as he wanted to be. If he somehow affects the ball, pushes on the mallet, does something, it's going to go off in the wrong direction. So it's a combination of making sure that you are lined up straight and that you're letting the mallet do a natural swing. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the favor has been returned. Blue
Yellow
makes an amazing
didn't even
clearance
touch the
on
sides of the
yellow.
hoop.
Center balls it through the hoop without touching it.
That's rough.
That is rough. So Robert from 4-4 is now up 6-4. And that is what we were talking about with the 19-point games is, as people can see, there is quite a bit of luck, bad and good, in a game of golf croquet. And a little luck there has made this from a fairly close game to now Malcolm is definitely going to be feeling on the back foot a little bit. But if this were a 19-point game, Robert would still have 4 more points to score. So it would be roughly the getting into the late game, but still sort of in the mid-game. And Malcolm may not be feeling quite as much pressure because in this situation, one more hoop, Robert wins. There is no giving up another hoop. And in a 19-point game, Malcolm would have a little more breathing room to get a rhythm, steal a few hoops in a row, and try to equalize the score. So this luck is a lot more of a contributing factor in these shorter form games. And obviously, Malcolm could hit that shot 10,000 times and never do that again. And I do encounter a lot of people, especially when they start clearing balls around the hoop. Oh, I'm worried I'm going to put it through the hoop. And I worry that they'll watch videos like this and start to think like, see, I know it's a risk. You have to worry about it. 10,000 tries. Could not have done that again. The same one way with what Robert did earlier at hoop 5. Could not have done it if he tried 10,000 times. Sometimes you're just unlucky. But if there is a shot you have to make, even if there's some risk, like I put you into the hoop the other day, I still needed to make that shot. So just commit to it. If it happens, it happens. Move on.
Yeah, the key is to move on. It's It's
I
always
did
going to
it
be
against
disappointing.
your brother.
Yep.
I was up 5-3 against your brother in the deciding game of a match at the Fletcher Sharp tournament, and I tried
I think I
to
remember it was
rush
hoop
him behind
11,
the hoop,
think
and
it
I
was.
accidentally cut him into the jaws of hoop 9.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in that match, I wasn't able to let that go quickly enough, and that sort of took the wind out of my sails. And 5-3 lead turned into a 7-5 loss fairly quickly because Robert put his foot down on the gas. So these are those things where, the shorter memory you have, the better it will happen.
Just enough.
Just enough. Snicked it there on the left side and pushed it off of the hoop.
As far as positions for red, that's not too bad. Being on the north boundary here, could have gone on to the further boundary on east side.
What weight is Malcolm's mallet?
Yeah, I picked it up and found it was quite light and asked him. He said it's 2.8.
2.8.
That's
So
pretty light considering his last one was 3 pounds.
really?
Yeah.
So I actually find that most of the Americans, I started with a 3-pound mallet. I know Matthew still uses 3 pounds. I think Zach Watson until very recently was using 3 pounds. I find that Americans, most of the players I'm aware of typically are using heavier mallets. Mine right now is 214. And then I talked to you guys, and Robert's mallet is 210, 2.8, something like that. I know he has a different one for GC and AC, but and the AC one is lighter. But I think his GC one is 212, which even for what I think most Americans play with is still really on the light side. Is there a particular reason that you guys are attracted to using lighter weights in your mallets?
It has a lot to do with the distribution of the weight in the mallet itself. So you're going to have some weight in the handle. The lighter your mallet gets, you're going to have some weight from your grip, depending how much it is. Ooh. The other
Rare
one
miss
is
from Robert.
if you have most of the weight in the head, and if it is, as in this case, is a mallet where it's got a metal face, the peripheral weighting, a lot of the energy transfer into the ball is going to be pretty efficient. So you don't have to be necessarily a fairly heavy mallet. In golf croquet, you tend to be taking harder shots than you would normally. You don't have to worry about croquet strokes. So I'd say that compared to AC, a lighter mallet is possible. I'm not saying it's recommended. In my opinion, I believe 212 is the sweet spot. 3 pound is on the higher end of like that range, and on the lower end is 2.8. I wouldn't go any lower, in my opinion, than 2.8. I wouldn't go any much higher than 3 pounds. I'm not saying that if someone does have a mallet outside that range that it doesn't make sense, just that it's the place that where you start from. Right now I'm playing with slightly under 3 pound. I can't remember what it is exactly, but my next mallet I want to be 212. But at the end of the day, it comes down a lot to one, can you get good energy transfer into the ball, and can you generate that swing? And if that means you have a slightly heavier mallet, then
Great shot from Malcolm.
and as Malcolm's demonstrated there, with a very light mallet, as far as people would be concerned in the States, it's serving him just fine.
Yeah, so when I was starting out in croquet, and I forget now exactly where I heard this, so the truth of it may be somewhat debatable, but someone said that if you have a peripherally weighted mallet and it's heavier, then obviously it's going to sort of act as its own stabilizer. It's going to, and I have noticed that like, you know, going from 3 pounds to 214, even that small of a difference did take some adjustment because the 3-pound one wanted to swing in a straight line a little bit more because the two weights counteracting each other were a little bit more substantial. But on the flip side of that, they said a lighter mallet you can typically actually generate more ball speed because you can swing it faster.
True.
And obviously, when we're talking a difference of a couple ounces, probably not super noticeable. If you can swing a 3-pound mallet, you know, you can swing a 214 one, roughly the same. But I imagine a jump from 3 pounds down to 210 or 28, as one of Robert's is, would be a much more significant difference.
Yeah, and another thing is the way you hold it, the way you swing it at the moment. Initially, when I first got this mallet that Robert made, the RF Pro, I was thinking it was a little bit too heavy for me. But with the handle being 38 inches, I now hold my hand at the top with my thumb on the top of the handle, and it helps me pivot it. So I actually don't feel like I'm disadvantaged in any way with the heavier mallet. But that's because of the particular style that I use. I don't cast necessarily. I try to get the momentum going and then bring it back. A little bit similar to...
That's a great shot.
That's a great shot. That's going up to
that's an
hoop
amazing
13.
shot.
So, Tom, do you want to talk our viewers through the significance of this shot?
So some of you might be viewing thinking, oh, he didn't hit that in the middle. He didn't get red as far away as he could have. That was not a great shot. He was actually attempting to hit that on the right-hand side because, and you can't see it obviously where the camera is now, but his ball would have traveled almost all the way up to hoop 13 right here in front of us in the bottom left corner. Unfortunately, Robert has hit the return okay. But what Malcolm was going for was if red missed and black ran the hoop, Robert would get to be the first one up to the tiebreaker hoop. And I think the numbers have been done where it says the first person up to hoop 13 has like a 3 out of 4 chance of winning the game, something crazy like that. But that is if you don't already have a ball up in that vicinity that can either run the hoop or get an easy clearance on their first ball. And blue would be in a great position, I believe, and I'm sure we'll see it here in a minute when Malcolm goes to take his shot. But so it would be hovering around hoop 13. So you're always looking, if you're the player who's down 5-6 at hoop 12, not just to run the hoop. We talked a little bit earlier about trying to control multiple hoops. You're trying to get that clearance off of an opponent so that you can go all the way up to 13 because you won't be offsides if you've hit an opponent in the shot that got you there. So that was a great shot from Malcolm. It was an equally good shot from Robert. Robert didn't need to hit that black ball in the middle. He just needed it not on the hoop.
It's something to be mindful of when you're playing at hoop 12 to consider when you put your ball north of your opponent, they may be looking at that angle to get where Malcolm blew up there.
Yeah, I believe it's referred to as the triangle of death by some people.
Triangle, I've heard various
heard different things.
Triangle danger, triangle death, I think.
So basically, if you look at a triangular area between the peg, a few yards west of the peg, so from the perspective of the screen to the left side of the screen of that hoop, there's just a general area in there between where if you place a ball there as Robert and Malcolm has one ball in position, his other ball could get a clearance that naturally, if he hits it right, sends him on an angle up to 13 as we saw. So we would say that that red ball was lying in that triangle of danger from where Malcolm was. And obviously your ball has to be in the appropriate position to be able to capitalize on that. But unfortunately, Robert did make the return shot, so Malcolm did not get any significant advantage. But
it's definitely something to. I think it's something that it's one of the first things that people begin to learn as a tactic for getting off to the next hoop. It's one of the first things I heard about when I was playing golf croquet, and then as soon as you learn about that, you start thinking about maybe not as critical hoops as hoop 13, other ploys in the game, like how I can get my ball off to somewhere else, like where I should be placing placing my balls to either prevent someone getting a great shot up to a next hoop. and it's a fun one to pull off. It's always disappointing when someone manages to clear it off. I don't know, it's one of the more fun ones where everyone's always trying to aim for that triangle of danger, get up there. The most famous completion of this actually would be, from my understanding, Range Bamford to win the 2000 and I'm going to say 13 Worlds in Egypt.
Yes, against Ahmed Nasser, which is on YouTube, by the way. All 5 games.
It's a fantastic match.
If you want to learn what golf croquet can be at its highest level and you want to see it played at its highest level, watch that match.
At the home of golf croquet in Egypt.
And I believe that Reg in that final game was down 6-2 at one point or something that, and fought back to the hook and then won from a boundary line hoop shot off of that promotion.
So that actually, you mentioned to me yesterday.
That's a very good ball
shot
from Robert.
That you favor yourself when you're on the boundary for hoop 13. You feel as if anywhere's a good shot. You're like, okay, I've got a shot. I'll go for it. So I guess you favor.
It doesn't
anything
matter
open
how
is a hoop shot for you.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how bad I've been shooting hoops the rest of the game. For some reason, on hoop 13, when it's crunch time, I'm just like, all right, I'm making this hoop. And I have a surprising percentage of them. So I don't know what possessed me not to take it when I had 2 balls in front on the line and you didn't have
That's why I came
either.
up yesterday.
But I was being a little too cautious, and it did end up costing me because I had to try to do a jump shot later, and the jump shots were definitely not working well. So there was something to be said there for maybe just trusting in my history and just going for the 7-yarder. But and it's good to have those. You tell yourself these things, and I think it's important as a player to just sort of sometimes buy into your own hype a little bit, because when you do find yourself in those situations, and I think Reg is one of the best at this. Good attempt. Those self-affirmations of just saying, like, I'm going to make this shot. I'm the best at these shots. If there was one person in the whole world who should make this shot, it's me.
Yep.
And because if you step up to one of those difficult pressure shots with any other mindset, you're already sort of selling yourself short. If you walk up with, oh, this is a difficult shot, I don't know if I'm going to make it, or if I miss it, what's going to happen, and all these other things, it's going to be difficult for you to put your best swing on it. It's going to be difficult for you to execute that shot. And so I'm actually a personal fan of kind of, even if it's true or not, I truly don't know. My percentage is 13. I might just be completely average. But I'm going to tell myself that I'm the best there is at hoop 13. And you better not give me a shot at hoop 13 because I'm making it. So.
That's a good frame of mind to have. Okay, so Malcolm's in a bit of a conundrum here. He had a pretty good hoop shot attempt at hoop 12. It was a good opportunity, pretty straight on, a little bit far out. Yellow did have a hampered back. And from this angle, it's not that bad. It's really just was going for his hoop shot there. Didn't work out. And now, Yellow's got an angled shot. Yellow's pretty far in front. I'm guessing that it's more likely that Robert will clear blue, but he could clear it to a wide position. So Malcolm's not guaranteed to have a clearance shot on red.
Yeah. This is a tough situation for Malcolm. Obviously, this is the match point on the line. Robert's already won 2 games, so any miss here might be the last opportunity that you get. He was going for hoop. Wow. So perhaps he couldn't see yellow past. I don't think red's blocking it, but
Malcolm is a flair player. He does love.
Well, just like what we were saying. It's just like, like I'm gonna make this hoop. Like this is gonna be awesome. I did see him play Robert in a video of, I think it was your Australian men's tournament. I think it was the final where he made hoop 11 from an angle.
Oh
on the
yeah,
boundary,
in
like
Perth, that was a
10.
great shot. Yeah.
But then Robert, I think, responded with that promotion shot up to 13. And Robert Fletcher is our champion. He's won 3 straight games, 7-3, 7-4, 7-5 over his brother Malcolm to be the first ever USGC Open champion.
Yeah, so that was tightly fought final. Robert obviously came out of the gate firing immediately. Looks like Malcolm was A little bit unfortunate in that last game there where he peeled Robert through hoop 10. It looked like Malcolm was getting into form, definitely between, I'd say, hoops 9 to 12. He was pretty much middling everything. So that last shot there that didn't quite work out for him at 12. But yeah, congratulations to Robert and also Malcolm for making the final. But we can move across to the next game, which is for the third and fourth playoff between Matthew Essick and Kyle Maloof.
And as you saw again, that banner that we saw of the sponsor, Automatic Water Solutions, and Bill Simmons, along with Chris Barley, for helping support this broadcast. So we can't thank them enough. We just wanted to shout them out one more time as we get into this final match. So thank you so much to everyone involved for volunteering to make this happen. We have some cameramen down on the ground right now. John Graney and Brian Hovis have been here. Oh, what a shot. So, but John Graney and Brian Hovis have been here filming dutifully, rain or shine, bringing us this production. And Russ Dilley, who's behind me, who manages the USCA YouTube channel and is sort of our master controller of all of our nice graphics and things like that. So thank you to all of them for the work that they put into this. Oh, all right. So as we were talking about earlier, the jump shots on these lawns, quite difficult to get airtime, especially when they're maybe a little damp. So
I've seen a lot of...
did not get the airtime he wanted, had a great line, it looked like, but caught the top half of that yellow ball and just popped it through the hoop. So Matthew is up 2 games to none at the moment, 7-4, 7-4, but Kyle now with a fairly comfortable position here, 3-1 up with advantage at 5.
And a block on 5.
Block on 5, it looks like.
Which in this case, players might say, well, Matthew's not going to shoot at the hoop from here. But, I mean, I'm not putting that past him either. But the main thing is that a clearance, if you can, you want to have the hoop in the way in a straight line. Makes it a little bit, the odds are low, but your opponent may hit you in the jaws or hit you through or hit you on the leg. If you can guard the hoop at any point, that's great. Another thing is also that red is west, if I got my rotation right, on hoop 5, meaning that if blue does clear it, it's not going to stick around, even if it does hit it at a softer pace. These are things that you don't always necessarily aim for if you're trying to get in front of hoop 5, but if your touch is in, you should consider which side of the hoop you're putting it on. Not only the distance from the hoop, but the angle.
So Matthew missing twice with his Irish clearance, and will give up a angled attempt to red here at hoop 5. Cheryl Bromley in the chat said, worth noting in the U.S. that the majority of our tournaments use timed 13-point matches, which really changes the nature of the game. Very refreshing to be able to watch full matches. So yeah, so it is true that a lot of tournaments in the U.S. are timed in their games, at least in the block stages and maybe the early rounds of the knockout. It is largely unavoidable many times just because of the size of the player field. We have a very large number of players that in certain regions that are able to show up. For instance, I ran a tournament at my club, an annual club teams tournament. It's all doubles, 80 players, 40 doubles teams
80 players.
on 6 lawns. So time limits were mandatory. Because it was 3 flights as well, championship first and second. So when you have events like that, which there are quite a few in the U.S., multi-flighted events, games can take a long time. And we often do not have the luxury of being able to make them up later on the event just because every day kind of runs long.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that, actually, the nature of time limits in games for tournaments. And this is very dependent on the number of players you have. So if you've got 80 players, this might be difficult to do. And the level of play and also the state of the game. So we're going to, in this case, exclusively talk about block games. So let's say, and I got this idea from Stephen Morgan, actually. It came out of the Fletcher Sharp invitation where we had to use time limits due to the nature of only having 3 lawns, and we had a lot of players. And, not many games went. That was very unfortunate.
Yeah, very unfortunate for Matthew. Black may have had a partial block on yellow, or just close enough that any little wobble there would cause him to hit it. But
it looks like Kyle's going to take the opportunity to clear this black as far as he can. The reason he's doing this is that he can comfortably, with his straight swing and clearance stick around as he has and get black as far away as possible. So yeah, basically Stephen was proposing that if possible, there might be a way to limit the number of games that end up timing out for top players, and the criteria would be if you have not yet made, so you have some time limit, let's say it's an hour and 10, okay. If you've made hoop 10, you're allowed to finish the rest of the game because 11, 12, 13 are relatively short, right?
Right.
And you get that true contest at the end. If you have not yet made hoop 10, then this game is more likely than not to drag out a little bit longer. It's just unfortunate, so you get either a few more rotations or, in my opinion, you could factor in maybe 10, 15 minutes. Just say, look, as soon as the timer goes, that's it. And that way you get at least a little bit more of a contest. And if you do end up to hoop 11 and it's tied at 5-all, at least that's some kind of finality to the game. So that's something that I hope that might be maybe a little bit of a band-aid on the whole time limit thing. We haven't tried it out yet, but I think it's a potential solution.
I'm a very personal advocate of trying to institute compromises like that. I, obviously, as a competitor, I want the game to finish, win or lose. I don't care if I lose when the person hits 7 points. I do care if I lose if I'm, 5-4 down and time is called and they're like, well, you don't have enough time to score this other hoop to tie it up, so you lose 5-4. In my head, I'm thinking, well, I've won plenty of games from 4 or 5 down, so this isn't really a accurate representation of how this game could have gone. It did happen to me at the Fletcher Sharp that one of my block games did go to time, and I lost 6-5. And obviously, the other player was playing really well. Could have easily won the game. Might have won the game 7-5. But there's always that part of me that's like, I had a chance. I could have fought this back. 6-5 is not an unconquerable pit. So any time that we can ditch time limits or alter time limits to allow for the actual finishing of games is a good thing. I think that maybe in the U.S. we sometimes tend to try to overpopulate tournaments. It might benefit more from having smaller field restrictions when less lawns are available. So 80 was the absolute upper limit of what I could do. And because it's a doubles-only tournament and it's club teams, it's more for fun and just getting people together. So time limits were perfectly fine.
Yes, in that situation, it makes
and I didn't
perfect
time.
sense.
We had 3 different venues, so I didn't time championship flight as stringently as I may not have given them any time limits at all. Now that I think about it, but
great shot.
Nice shot from Matthew. So, typically the higher ranked players don't want time limits. The lower ranked players are fine with it because especially doubles, their games can go on quite a bit, and you have to keep the schedule moving. But if you only have 3 or 4 lawns at your disposal, a 48-player tournament can be quite congested, and maybe limiting the field to 32 or 24 or some number like that might help everybody get more time on the court, untimed games, walking away just maybe slightly more satisfied. So I'd be interested to see if we could look into something like that here in the United States about maybe we're just putting too many people in tournaments for if we have to keep having these stringent time limits.
Yeah, anytime you have to use the time limits, it should be a last resort or tailor-made for the tournament, such as the one that Tom was running where he had 80 players and it was just necessary. And if you do have to use time limits for a high level, you really want to be doing it as a last resort rather than, this is the way we always do it. Because at the end of the day, we want to have that proper contest on the lawn played out. So it looks like, is this
this is
jump
a jump
shot?
shot.
Okay,
All
so
right. He's done this
is one
to
of the
Kyle
more aggressive
before.
shots that I've seen.
The height on this is going to be a problem, but he only needs to get over yellow. So for those who are interested, there is a video that does exist on Instagram. I'd have to find it. Matthew against Kyle at a Nationals several years ago, where Matthew was in almost the exact same situation from that same distance, just a few yards north of hoop 9. And both of Kyle's balls were tight in front of the hoop blocking him. And Matthew successfully made the jump shot
from about that distance to get over Kyle and score the hoop. So there's video evidence. It's one of the best shots I've ever seen hit in my life. But so we almost got a. Kyle was probably having a moment of deja vu there.
Yeah.
He's like, oh no, I remember this. So, that's a great shot. Managed to clear the red ball down. Now yellow obviously is going to get this longer hoop attempt, and Kyle is very solid at these, very steady. But if you're in Matthew's position, 2-5 down, and with no balls in front of the hoop, you just have to hope he misses and try to wrestle control of this hoop back.
Yeah, if
from
there's
him.
anything that you can learn from the way, great shot, that Matthew plays is he's not afraid to play that softer clearance there where, red can easily clear black south of the hoop. But basically what Matthew's doing there is he's got a lot of range in his game where it's like, okay, I don't necessarily need to clear that ball like far up the lawn. I'm really trying to keep myself in play at the hoop. Red could only clear black, south. Having that range is super important. Kyle's going for the clearance here.
Great shot.
Wow. Okay.
Really
So
good shot.
he was playing those all day throughout the game that I was playing against him, and I saw him play a fantastic match against Robert as well. Really looking very confident in his swing, especially with longer clearances like that, where he's not just like flicking the ball, he's like really hitting the middle.
Kyle is the epitome of a professional, both in his teaching career and just in his competitive career. He is very composed, very, very methodical in his approach to the game, and his strategy, and just in his temperament, making sure that he never allows himself to get too much in his own head, even if obviously he's in a very good position right here in this game, but he has just lost 2 games straight, 7-4 down, and is staring down the barrel of, losing in 3 straight, and he's able to come out and still hit those incredible shots and give this somewhat commanding performance.
There's a lot
It just is a testament, I think, to the Maloof mindset. David is very much the same, and obviously Kyle has learned a lot from his dad, but just they're born competitors. And Matthew again with same situation. Black may have just been slightly in the way, and he just clips the black ball a little bit, trying to get rid of that yellow. So it just looks like Matthew's swing is not quite where he wants it to be. That Irish we've seen a couple of missed clearances there where they haven't quite been online.
interesting to see that for someone, I would say that Kyle is quite similar to yourself in the cadence of play that he has. He casts, but he's a very fast player. Doesn't spend long in between decision making. It's more comes up to the ball, does a couple of swings, whether it be his positional play or his clearances. Very got a fast cadence on him.
Yeah, it's very. He has good rhythm. He's making sure that, and I think we talked about this a little earlier. It's like if you take too long, you have that moment where everything feels right, and then you let it pass.
Yeah.
And there's a chance that if you take one too many casts, or have one too many thoughts, or allow something to distract you, then you lose that sort of pocket where your good swing is going to come out of. So most players, I think, have a tendency to preempt it and go a little too quick, but there's also that definite risk of staying in it a little too long. And I think what you see with his rhythm is that, he's quick enough. Like, obviously, he's not, dawdling or anything, but he's just taking that little couple extra seconds of time to make sure that everything is correct. But once he has it, he's ready to go.
All right. It's a confident way to finish the third game, 7-2.
Game 3 in the books.
Wonder if they'll be going in for lunch. Is that walking up to the pavilion? Could be. But yeah, so I just wanted to double click on what Tom said there. I think that, it's worth, especially if you're a caster, considering, can you find a rhythm that you're in? Because clearly players such as yourself and Kyle have this, right? Because I would say a lot of the time people who cast can tend to go in the slower side of things in play. And they might think, and I'm not, necessarily criticizing. If it works for you, that's great. But you might be missing out on an opportunity where you can get into a rhythm that is achievable when you lean on the faster side of things. So we mentioned the difference between like fast and quick. Like you don't want to be going too quick, but having confidence in your swing, in your cadence, I think is easier to achieve if you have a rhythm going. And it's something definitely that people should consider when they cast. And also, you've got to be considerate of some of the conditions. Got to be some players who cast a lot can be difficult playing in the wind because each cast they do is one more opportunity to feel off center. So yeah, definitely formulating and working on a style that favors a dynamic and rhythm-based play is really important.
So the players have decided, it's around noon time, so they've decided to break for lunch before they resume game 4. So we are going to follow suit. You'll probably be joined by some new voices when we come back from the break, but thank you guys so much for tuning in with us, and we should be back in a little less than an hour, maybe an hour or so. So keep the live stream near you and prepare for some more great croquet. Thank you for having us.
So I will definitely get in touch when I come back. And the mark.
Got Edmund and Fordyce and myself, Ewan Burridge here, commentating on the 4th game between Matthew Essick and Kyle Maloof. They've just come back from a lunch break. At the moment, I think the cameraman is not actually manning the camera, so this is all we've got for now. Should fix that in a second. So Edmund, how's your week been?
Not bad. Not the results I would have wanted. But yeah, can't complain. It's always nice to be able to come to these events and play against some of the world's best. So yeah, hoping for a better display next month. But yeah, overall quite good.
Okay. I think Matthew will be pretty happy with that. Take position at hoop 1, a yard in front. Opponent misses both balls, and you run hoop 1 to 2 yards straight at hoop 2. That's pretty much like if you had the toss, that's how you draw up the game starting, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
So Kyle's opting to shoot twice at this ball. Oh no, he's taking position. I've got to figure out when Kyle's shooting and taking position. I did it yesterday as well.
So we got you and Edmund, right?
Matthew's just going to play in.
I'm surprised Kyle didn't shoot twice there.
Yeah. Especially considering yellow's, I know it's only a yard, but it is further away. This is a pretty big shot.
Sean, do we have a score?
Oh, mallet twist.
That
Mallet.
never looked like hitting.
Yeah,
Did you see who scored hoop 1?
Matthew.
Matthew.
Yeah, it just twisted in his mallet at impact, so I assume he didn't quite strike that correctly. But to be honest with you, I think Kyle made the right decision to take position first ball, because now we've got to the point. This is a kind of a pressure hoop for Matthew here. It's not trivial. What is it, 2.5 yards?
Yeah, but he's looked pretty solid at these.
Has he?
In the last couple of games. So
Guys, get close to the money.
I don't know. I think I would have been shooting twice there.
Okay. Kyle's got to go and take position across to hoop 3. Generally, this is probably the slowest shot on each lawn at the club. I feel as though
Matthew scored 2.
I feel as though corner 3 on most lawns is probably the highest point on the lawn. Matthew's choosing to shoot twice. Probably the right thing to do. Did you get to see much of the main event final?
A little bit. It looked like Robert was just himself, kind of hitting a lot of stuff. Malcolm, I think, played better against Matthew yesterday and just missed kind of one too many shots that he wasn't seemingly missing yesterday against Matthew. So probably not the performance that Malcolm wanted, but Yeah, still played really well throughout the event.
Do you reckon Matthew can get in off this yellow?
I think he'll just be looking to hit it.
Well, he needs to try and hit the red if he's just going to try and hit it. Gets it, but that's going to be a pretty easy block for Kyle. Is this not the lawn that Kyle played against Robert on yesterday?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think the decision was probably made around the hoops, where they wanted to play the final.
Sure. Doesn't look like the block was achieved, so Matthew's got this at yellow. Middles it, but Kyle's still got all the control, hasn't he? Just going to come a few yards back here, so that black doesn't have the angle.
He's playing tight, looks like.
Guess there's nothing wrong with it. Depends when Matthew clears this. If he clears it.
It's a good shot.
That's pretty solid. Now, Kyle's going to play back in.
Looked at black for a second there,
That would be.
which I quite like the look of, but
I'm not convinced
that's not his style.
No.
It's a good shot.
But at the same time, the next clearance is going to be shorter when he gets the opportunity to do it with blue next time. And he's obviously going to get that. So, definitely the right decision he made. You see? This one's half the distance. I think he might take this one. If he takes position, Matthew's going to try and run the hoop, isn't he?
No, he's shooting.
Kyle's been pretty solid from this range all week, so let's see if he's still got it or whether at end of the tournament starting to lose it a little bit. But missed. Matthew's going to clear that red now, isn't he?
It looked like he twisted again ever so slightly on that final swing. Almost at a different pace from the rest of his cast, speeding up on that last one, almost trying to force the clearance.
I guess half the time, though, when you do have the little twist, it's almost forced by the way you hit, by the way you strike the ball. If you strike it slightly on the left or right, then the mallet's going to twist that way. It's not always necessarily his wrist actually doing the twist. Matthew tried to get into the jaws after that, which would have obviously all but wrapped up the hoop, just hit the wire, but it's still pretty good. Do you reckon he'll go for the hoop with black? It's kind of a free go, isn't it?
He likes to be aggressive with his hoops, so I imagine so.
I like that position that Kyle's just taken there. Not really giving Matthew an angle with either ball to get an advantage. If he just clips the wire here, he could easily nail the blue away. Or sort of stuggle onto the blue and make it all difficult. We'll see.
Nice shot.
Could just run it and leave himself a rush down to the next hoop. I think he's going to take that. Has to, surely.
This is not an easy positional shot.
It's not an easy positional shot, and the game's starting to slip away from Kyle already, and we've only been going for about 5 minutes. This is good. Oh, it's just pulled up. It is short, but it probably would run if it needs to run, right?
If it had to, probably.
That's pretty good. Just needs to go a few more yards. He just underhit it slightly. But he'll be happy with that.
The benefit of being an AC player.
Yep. Is this going to go long? Again, it probably runs if it needs to, but it's not ideal. Will he even get the chance? This could be 4-0 in a matter of 5 minutes.
I would have been interested to see if red could have shot at black there.
Yeah, well, it's 4-0. And Matthew's hooping looks pretty solid, considering that was what he was complaining about yesterday that he was struggling with.
Yeah.
We did a bit of work last night on it, didn't we? I think when you're 4-0 down, you really want to be putting that ball in a really nice position to make sure if you do get the opportunity, you're going to run it right down to 6. Just
Matthew
overhit it slightly.
shooting.
I'm surprised by that.
Middles.
Maybe he's just gone into robot mode and doesn't think he can miss. Because he hasn't missed the middle of the ball for a while.
No. But still surprising that he shoots at that, given how well he's shooting. Surely he would back himself to hit it with black.
It's a great point, Edmund. Well made as well. It's unlike you to be finding...
Finding tactical flaws.
Exactly.
Rather than creating them.
Yeah. Oh, now he's shooting at the red. Or maybe he's going for the hoop. Hoop shot.
Oh,
he gets
and he
it.
runs it.
Wow.
Maybe that's why he cleared the yellow.
I think I spotted what was going on here. Matthew doesn't think he can miss, so this could be a quick game. I think is there one more match going on in the plate final next door?
There is the plate final.
But that is the only other match being played at the moment. Maybe we could go and play a Z game.
No.
No? Okay.
I don't fancy losing more points.
Do you think Matthew's going to have 2 shots? Do you think Matthew's going to have 2 shots at the hoop here? I think he might have 2 shots at the hoop here.
It looks like he's shooting at the hoop here.
I love it.
Looks good.
No.
Oh.
It's 5-5 now. Wow. So... This is quite a bleak situation for Kyle here. He's having to clear this black purely because black can clear the yellow or peel the blue. And oh no.
I mean, only benefit is he's flicked off towards 7, so he might at least make one hoop.
But Matthew's going to flick off towards 7 as well.
Mm.
Comment on it, wonderful. Just congratulations.
I'm being told to congratulate Ewan on winning the bowl this morning. It was a fairly okay performance, I think. You improved sort of as you went on, but I thought Harry played really well and made it really tough for you.
Well, yeah, it's good to see him back. Like, I haven't seen him play for a long time, and he kept saying that he doesn't feel as though he's anywhere near where he used to be. But I think me and you both agree that he's still pretty good.
Oh.
If he doesn't think he's anywhere near where he used to be, I'd love to see where he thinks he used to be.
Yeah. I mean, in the match he played against me, just was absolutely clinical. Anything under a 10-yard clearance, he would absolutely middle. Anything under 4 or 5 yard hoops, he was not missing. So
yeah, he just had a couple of failed hoop shots when the pressure started to get going late in the third game. But apart from that, it was a fairly solid performance, and yeah, always good to win the bowl. It's probably my most winningest tournament, to be honest. I'm quite good at winning bowls.
So score is 6-0 for Matthew.
He even gets the sort of angle here. He's going to get that go with black, isn't he, to run the hoop and win 7-0.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, it's hilled left. That black's going to be open on the hoop. In fact, it might even be a nice double. But Matthew's shooting at it.
I think, I think he just wants to give himself the open shot.
I think he's already got the open shot. He could just take position, then he's got a double.
But as we've seen, Matthew just is shooting at absolutely everything.
Maybe we did discuss potentially going to play golf.
Oh, he's shot at the hoop.
Yeah, we were going to play golf this afternoon, so maybe if he's trying to make the tee time. Well, I think we know what's going to happen with this black ball.
Yeah, it's either jumping or it's going flat.
I think it's going flat. you wouldn't be moving the ball in from the boundary if it was going flat. You also wouldn't be playing with an Irish grip. This could be quite an end to the tournament. He's done it, 7-0.
Wow.
That was pretty flawless.
Not sure there was a missed shot from...
Well, he just failed that hoop that he just tried from 60 degrees.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah, I know the scoreboard on the screen says 5-1, but I can assure you it's 7-0. Yeah, game over. I don't really know what to say. We were looking forward to doing a little bit of commentary. It only lasted 10 minutes.
So that's it.
Yeah, that is it. And I guess the plate's not in the greatest position to be able to stream it. It's 7-0.
7-0.
So, congratulations to Matthew.
Third place.
Third place. Well deserved, I think, after that performance.
That was quite impressive.
Yeah.
I think he'll probably watch that one back a few times. Well, that's it from us. I guess these Diet Cokes we bought to drink whilst we were commentating.
I know, a little bit
had
pointless.
Like 2 sips of them. I hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Okay, there we go. And for anybody still listening, that's it from the inaugural U.S. Open Golf Croquet Invitational. This tournament is going to be in March next year, so it won't conflict with the ladies tournament, which is here next week. We won't be able to live stream that, but we will be maybe recording the end of the tournament, and it's on the calendar to be live streamed next year. So long from South Florida. Our next event for live streaming is the Under 21 Worlds in Sarasota in April. It'll be on the schedule. We'll look forward to it with you.